I'd like to call to order the regular city commission meeting for Tuesday, March 15th, 2022. Please have roll call.
Commissioner Drosky,
Here.
Commissioner Hudak,
Here.
Commissioner Parnas,
Here.
Vice Mayor Preston, Vice Mayor Preston, and Mayor Vance.
Here. If we could please have a moment of silence in our pledge of allegiance.
Okay.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could have approval of the city commission meeting minutes from the regular city commission meeting of March 1st, 2022.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed. Acknowledgement of our city board meeting minutes, our community hearings board meeting from February 9th, planning and zoning board meeting minutes from December 2nd, 2021, fire pension board meeting minutes of September 27th, 2021, Hillsborough Inlet District meeting minutes of January 24th, 2022, and our police pension board meeting minutes from November 1st, 2021.
Motion to acknowledge. Second.
We have a motion, second, all in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Tonight, we have a bit of a changing of the guard. Vice Mayor Preston?
Yes, sir.
Remarks, sir.
Yes, I would. I would just like to say, Mayor, if you didn't like the job I was doing, you could have told me, and I'm sure as we would try to fix that. No, seriously, it's been an honor and a pleasure, to serve as vice mayor to this wonderful city, to work with you, Mayor, to work with my colleagues, Commissioner Drosky, Commissioner Hudak, and Commissioner Parnas. It's been an absolute honor to be a part of what staff is doing. Our city manager and all of what we're doing is it's been a pleasure. And tonight, I will tell you that if anything, we're going to go to another level because Commissioner Hudak is a good person. He loves his city. He's got the greatest attitude, and he will grow, from this dais. And I will be happy to work with him. And I'll just let you know, Vice Mayor Hudak, anything that I can do personally to help the process. If you have a question or anything, you're more than willing to call me, and I will help you as much as we can, to help the process. So I thank everyone for giving me the opportunity to be in this position and to have been able to serve. And we are ready to go to the next level with Commissioner Hudak as Vice Mayor.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. I do want to thank you. You've been such a huge help to me and with meetings that I've either been later and not been able to attend that you've been able to take over and run, and appearances as well. I want to thank you so much for your service and a great job.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Madam Clerk. Yes, sir.
I, Michael Hudak, do solemnly swear or affirm.
That I am a citizen of the state of Florida
That I am a citizen of the state of Florida
and of the United States of America,
and of the United States of America,
and a registered voter
and a registered voter
and citizen
and citizen of the city of Detroit, as shown by the public record. I am being employed as vice mayor of the city of Deerfield Beach, and will be a recipient of the funds. As such, vice mayor, I further swear that I will support the charter of the city of Deerfield Beach, Constitution of the state of Florida, and the Constitution of the United States, and that I will well and faithfully hold the duties of my office on which I am about to enter.
Congratulations, sir.
First, I'd like to say thank you very much to former Vice Mayor Preston for his kind words. You have set the bar very, very high, and I'll do my utmost to at least get to those things. So I greatly appreciate it. It continues to be a tremendous honor to represent the residents of Deerfield Beach, not just District 1 residents, but all residents of Deerfield Beach. Serving on the dais with these honorable men is very humbling and has been tremendously rewarding to both myself and the city as a whole. Since being elected 3 years ago, this dais has been able to accomplish a great many things. Just to name a few, we hired a city manager who continues to grow into a tremendous leader for us. We stopped the expansion of the medical marijuana distributors. We approved the installation of an expanded storm drain system for the Coral Manor neighborhood. We approved road paving for Coleman Pines and Coleman and Coral Manor neighborhoods. We approved a plastic straw ban in our city. That's something we need to look at reinforcing, by the way. We established a city manager written performance review form and annual review cycle. I sponsored a few of the resolutions that we passed as well. A resolution condemning bias and discrimination against individuals on the basis of their race, color, ethnicity, religion, or natural origin. A resolution designating the least terms as our official city verb. We were able to settle the lawsuit with the city of Hillsborough Beach to save our beach growing system and created a 30-year agreement between both cities on a beach renourishment program. We guided the city through a national pandemic while avoiding layoffs for city staff and funding services to help residents who could not pay for their rent or their utility bills. Over the next year, we will have many additional decisions to make. We will not agree on all decisions, but we always manage to work together to develop a solution that has the city's best interest in mind. I take the responsibility of Vice Mayor very seriously. I do not have a specific agenda, however, because these decisions are not made by one individual, but by a group of honorable men, the residents elected on this dais to be their voice. As Vice Mayor, I pledge to continue to be the voice of our residents, both District 1 and Deerfield Beach as a whole. I will continue to be an advocate for our city at the county, state, and federal levels with the relationships I continue to develop. Most importantly, I pledge to be there for our residents, the businesses, and looking for win-win solutions to their respective challenges. I thank each and every resident who entrusted me with their representation, and I look forward to serving you as your Vice Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. Congratulations. If we could have approval of tonight's agenda for March 15th, 2022.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion Couple motions in a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Madam Clerk?
For members of the public wishing to provide comments during tonight's meeting, 3 minutes will be provided, however, 1 additional minute can be granted by the mayor. Anyone connected online using a video, may cover the mouse at the bottom of the screen and click the participants tab on the right, click raise hand, and you'll be recognized by your profile name and your audio will be unmuted. Those participating with a landline or mobile device may simply dial *9 to raise your hand. You'll be recognized by the last 3 digits of your number. You can also dial *6 to unmute if necessary. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Tonight, we have a proclamation to give out, and we give out lots of proclamations. Usually it's in honor of a certain day or organization, and it's sometimes for individuals. And when we do that, usually it's celebrating a major accomplishment, or it's saying goodbye for their immediate contact with the city of Deerfield Beach. On some occasions, while it might be goodbye for their immediate contact with the city of Deerfield Beach, their legacy and what they do here in the city, or what they have done here in the city, will continue on, even though they might not be right here in our zip codes. That is the occasion here tonight. Tonight, we're going to honor John Marlowe, former principal of the Deerfield Beach High School. John Marlowe has been a dedicated principal to the students, faculty, and staff at Deerfield Beach High School for over 15 years. He's received a promotion and now will be serving, and is serving now as the director of the Broward County Public School Career Technical Adult Community Education Department, CTACE. City of Deerfield Beach would like to congratulate Mr. Marlowe on his promotion. We're not real thrilled about it, but we're certainly thrilled for you. And we would really like to thank you for your contribution here at Deerfield Beach's community. As a principal, Dr. fostered really an incredible goal of academic excellence, partnerships between the city of Deerfield Beach and various other initiatives that he's led. He has been in charge of bringing forward and has done a fantastic job of bringing together mentorship programs to support of students' academic success and their development. He's been an incredible exemplary educator who's had a tremendous impact on the lives of not only the students that he served, but the teachers, the administrators, and really the community at large, and all of us that have served up here on the dais, quite frankly. The city of Deerfield Beach is very grateful for Mr. Marlowe's contribution to the Deerfield Beach community and would like to wish him all the success and very well in his new role. This proclamation reads, whereas Mr. John Marlowe proudly served as principal of Deerfield Beach High School for the past 15 years and has been recently promoted to the director of the CTACE department. Whereas the city of Deerfield Beach would like to congratulate Mr. Marlowe on a well-deserved promotion and recognize his accomplishments to the Deerfield Beach community. And whereas as a dedicated principal, Mr. Marlowe has a tremendous impact on the lives of students, teachers, and administrators by fostering academic excellence through education, teamwork, discipline, and engagement. Whereas in Principal Marlowe's leadership and guidance, Deerfield Beach High School instituted a college tour, industry certification, mentorship programs of investing in women of the future and mentoring tomorrow leaders in Beach House, a new center that provides a safe, supportive space for mental health and wellness services. And whereas Mr. Marlowe has helped strengthen community ties by supporting partnerships between Deerfield Beach High School and the city of Deerfield Beach on various initiatives and community projects and events, like the annual Pioneers Day and Deerfield Beach High School Pride Days. Whereas the City of Deerfield Beach Commission is grateful for Mr. Marlowe's professional and personal contributions to Deerfield Beach community and would like to wish him well in his new role and great success in future endeavors. Now, therefore, I, Bill Gans, Mayor of the City of Deerfield Beach, in recognition of, do hereby proclaim March 15, 2022 as Principal John Marlowe Day. All of us here. Presenting just Marlowe, this clock, this is your time or your high school, by the hearts in mind. Thank you.
Somebody else get one.
Principal Marlowe, if you'd like to say a few words, and I know Commissioner Preston, and we have School Board Representative Nora Rupert online as well. I'd like to say a few things as well, but we'll let you have the opportunity.
Oh, well, thank you, Mayor. This is really a little bit overwhelming. It's always been a special privilege to be part of Deerfield Beach, the community. I remember coming here over 15 years ago doing an internship, and I really didn't know a whole lot about Deerfield Beach. And from day one, I fell in love with the place. And I've always said when I came as principal that relationships were probably the biggest component in providing an opportunity for students for their education. And the people that I met here at the school that are behind me, the people that work in the community, really brought relationships to a different level. Some of the first people I met was Phil Park, Coach Tazi, so the students, Bernard Robinson, Commissioner Preston was one of the first people I met here, and they just made things comfortable for me. And it really epitomizes, the city of Deerfield Beach really epitomizes the situation where it really takes a whole community to raise children. The city has always been supportive. We certainly had our ups and downs over the last 15 years. And anytime I needed support and the school needed the support and the students needed support, the city was always there. Mayor Dance, you were always there. The commission was always there. I remember, 7 or 8 years ago where Ben Preston and many of the organizations beautified Buck Pride Way. We came in and we just showed a great partnership between the school and the community. And it really is a true model of those partnerships and those relationships. And from the bottom of my heart, I'm almost in tears several times. It's half my career has been at Deerfield. And I want to thank the city for always being there for me, being there for the kids, and making me really feel part of the community of Deerfield. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Marlowe, I would just like to say to you, it has been such a pleasure to have someone like you in this community, someone who really cares about the kids. I'm just so overjoyed that you have brought Deerfield Beach High School where it is. And you did that, of course, with some help from some others. But there are some people that are part of the school board that I came to know that is in love with the kids, how they grow and understanding their needs. And I just can't say enough about what you have done. It is so greatly appreciated. So many kids will be better in life because they were under your influence. There's so many things that they don't understand right now simply because of age. They're still developing, but they will come to know that the things that you said to them in the tough times, the things that you said to them in developmental time, are things that will truly make a difference and allow them to come back to their communities and make a difference. You have inspired a few generations of kids to probably want to do exactly what you do, to come back and to teach and to work and to help. We could not have had a better person in this position. So thank you, John Marlowe, for what you've done. You've touched my heart in so many ways. You were there when we were doing Buck Pride Way out there with everybody. You and Nora were there and so many others. It just was so good for this community. You leave this community closer than when you came. You had a part to do with that. And for that, you can celebrate that it's better off now than when you initially was a part of it. So thank you. And as you go on with your duties in your new positions, I would say be blessed. And I know you'll do a good job there. And if you get the inkling to come back to Deerfield, we want you. Come on back. Come home. You know, we want you, you know, but this time we're going to put handcuffs on. You ain't going anywhere for this time. But thank you so much and enjoy. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. School Board Member Rupert, welcome.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to celebrate John Marlowe. I was very upset when I heard that John was going to be leaving District 7 because he knows I have that rule. You can move schools as long as you don't leave District 7. And this kind of beat that because he got to go downtown, and coincidentally, I run into him. I'm going into the board meeting and he was coming out the door. So I said, this is going to be great. Maybe I'll see him more than I usually do. But John, there is no one that is better served for you to be going downtown to help our CTAS families, because it is, you know, a desire of yours to do this. I know that for a while. You are a amazing leader. You lead with your heart, and you are very, very kind and respectful to those around you, and especially the children. And they pick up on that you really care about them and you care about their future. So I can honestly say, I don't believe you've ever said no to me. If I said I'm going to be doing a town hall, okay, I'll make it happen. If I'm going to be doing this, it was always yes, we'll do it for the kids, we'll get it done. And I thank you. I know you have a great team around you that you've left, and you're going to have a great team downtown, but you've definitely have some big shoes to fill. And I know that the superintendent will be able to pick up the person with community input and to see what exactly is best for Deerfield Beach. And I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to having a new set of eyes look through and see how they can further take our kids, our community, and our city further along. And thank you a million times. Thank you for all the work that you've done. And hopefully I run into you more downtown. So be well, hon. Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner, and congratulations, Vice Mayor Hudak. Thanks.
Thank you, School Board Member. Appreciate that. You always have a home here. So John, come back anytime. Thank you. Thank you. We have, I think we have public comment.
Okay, Anthony Soroka, City Attorney for the record. We are now at public comment portion of tonight's meeting. Persons addressing the commission shall state his or her name and address and may speak for 3 minutes unless extended for 1 additional minute by the mayor. This is the time for public comment on items that are not on tonight's agenda. If you have public comment on an item that's on tonight's agenda, the time to do it is after that agenda item is read into the record and the public comment period is open for that agenda item. And a reminder, no comment shall be made related to the personal life or personal qualities of any person, and no language which would offend persons of ordinary sensibilities shall be permitted.
Thank you very much. Clerk, I don't see anybody online. We have this written in. Okay, we have anybody here tonight? Let's speak. If you'd like to come up, just come up, give your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Olivia Cosmo.
If you can speak right into the microphone.
Is that better?
Yes, that's better.
Good evening. My name is Olivia Cosmo, and I'm here this evening because I'd like to address the professionalism of the parking enforcement officers that are coming into our community. I just wanted to come in tonight and talk about
the professionalism, and the manner in which they are addressing the community and the people that live in our community. And I just feel like if they took the opportunity to get to know the community a bit better, they would know what's going on, especially on the street that I live on. We have somebody that's been living there for 40 years just passed away. So they did have a lot of people coming over, family coming over. And then just the way that they come on our street, I just feel like they need to be more respectful to us. And that's what I wanted to address tonight.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I need your address, please.
It's 1440 Southwest 7th Terrace, and that's Deerfield Beach.
Excellent.
And then hopefully, I could speak to you at another time, trying to tell you some of the things that I've been doing in the community, because I would love to build a relationship with you and the commission.
Yeah, excellent. Thank
Thank
you, Mr. Oscar. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Good night.
Is there anyone else from the public who'd like to comment tonight? Well, let you come up first, man.
Panelists, commissioners, commissioners, city clerk.
I'm sorry, your name and address.
My name is Burnett Antoine, and I'm here to speak about
Ms.
14.
Antoine, I'm sorry, your address, please.
Yes, I'm giving you the address. 1450 Southwest 11th Way in Deerfield Beach, and this is the practice of Deerfield Beach. So I'm gonna speak real quick so that I don't go over my 3 minutes. So I want to talk about HUD housing, praxis versus funding, residents versus management, Judge John Hurley, people of disability and elderly versus residents, people of disability and elderly. Also, sheriff to the property, issuing ticket on private property. So I would like to ask the respective individual who oversees this type of matter to look into this. I have gone to the city and to the sheriff's office. I personally am speaking for the disenfranchised. Praxis has been renting to Black people predominantly who are not eligible. I learned this, that the property was not meant for young people to live. They were renting to many Black young people and people who are not qualified to live under premises under false pretense by collecting your work information, pay stub, bank account. And then later they are using John Hurley, the judge, to then place eviction on people with no reason for giving notice just because. I learned that they are being funded and the property is for people with disability and elderly, but there were many people, including myself, who did not fall within this jurisdiction or category. And I would like to ask someone to really look into this to alleviate or remove these evictions from people who are wrongfully rented these places so that Praxis could serve their pocket and ignore the disenfranchised. Because I do intend to take this to HUD to find out what is really going on. They're getting funds. And the second part, they do not do any repairs in the funds that they receive.
Excellent, thank you. We will be in touch on this.
Thank you.
That is something that I do want to talk about, actually. Is there anyone else from the public? Yes.
Peggy Ross, 103 Northeast American Avenue, and I'm a really big walker in the city of Deerfield Beach that I love so much. This is a little irrelevant because of daylight saving, which I believe is probably not going to be permanent, but I think this is not a city issue, but I think bringing it up to you. When you walk, I live on the island, and when you walk over the bridge, over like to the cove to go to the restaurants and things you want us to do, the lights are out on the bridge going over the intercoastal, and it is really dark. So with daylight saving now, I would think that's a county or a state issue. I think it's far enough from the beach that it should not be affected by turtles. Some of the lights up there are yellower, some are white, but when you get to like the center of the bridge, there's like no lights. So when you're Walker and want to feel safe, I would like to see the lights. And thank you, Will, for your wonderful job, and now you get a better parking space. Thank
Thank you very much, Ms. Ross. Is there anyone else in the public? Yes, sir.
Tom Schisler, 59 Northeast 11th Way. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, for the opportunity to address the meeting tonight. Just wanted to bring up some issues that existing residents are having with all the new construction that's happening in Deerfield Beach residential neighborhoods. As I'm sure you're all aware, building boom right now going on in the city, residential construction, partially caused by the strong economic environment that we're in. And also, I think, partially caused by some changes that were made to the Deerfield Beach Code about 3 or 4 years ago, making it more developer and builder friendly. So as a resident, some of the issues that we're facing are around noise, both during construction, and I'm afraid are going to happen after construction also. Noise during construction, the current code allows for construction to happen from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. 5 days a week, and also on Saturdays from 9 to 5 p.m. Can you imagine living next to house construction that in today's environment takes 12 to 18 months because of the size of the homes and with for project management? You really get no peace and quiet any longer as a neighbor. So as a resident, I'd like the city to take a look at limiting that time for new construction, maybe 9 to 5 instead of 7 to 7. And I think all the neighbors would enjoy some peace and quiet during the weekends and allow construction during the weekends. The other issue around noise is many houses are much larger than traditional homes used to be in the city. Those much larger homes have a significantly larger requirement for mechanical equipment. No longer does one air conditioning unit cool a house down, it takes 3 or more. Also, very large generators are required for backup power. Sometimes those generators are the size of a small automobile. Currently, zoning and planning is approving the plans for these houses without taking into account the city noise ordinance. By specification, all this mechanical equipment will be over the noise ordinance, and they're still allowing that to happen and asking the residents then to, after construction, to call code enforcement to be able to take care of those noise issues. It's something that I think certainly should be addressed up front rather than after the fact. Next comment I wanted to make is around elevation. Much of the new construction now is going in at a higher elevation than the existing neighborhoods, especially along the waterfront because of higher seawalls. Planning and zoning is allowing that to happen without really having a good plan for water runoff. So it's causing water runoff into neighbors' property, both during construction and I fear after construction, which is also a violation of city code. And I would hope that planning and zoning would deal with that up front rather than after the fact. Then the last thing I wanted to touch on was parking. I think everybody's aware of the city streets in Deerfield Beach and the residential neighborhoods are quite narrow. And when you have major construction projects going on in a residential neighborhood, there are a lot of contractors, there's truck delivery, there's construction equipment, and it makes it extremely difficult for the residents.
Would you like another minute, sir?
Yes, please. Makes it extremely difficult for the residents to get to their houses, to get out of their driveways, have parking available for your own service, whether your lawn service or your pool service. So I would like the planning and zoning to, as part of the approval process for the permits, to require a parking plan. And that parking plan would limit parking for construction to be contained on the construction lot or immediately in front of it only. Certainly would require significantly greater project management of the building contractor. But I think it would make the residents in the area much happier on a lot less confusion and issues in the city for parking and not the house. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else from the public who cares to speak? Not seeing any of the closest to the public. Just to address really quick, Ms. Cosgrove, I know we spoke on the phone and we will, I've already spoken with the city manager. I know he's already well aware of it and is working on that. As far as praxis goes, I would like to talk about it at the end of the meeting in my comments specifically, but I know we're having some serious problems with them. We've said from the beginning, and I told you I was leery of them when we first approved it for the house, that they're going to show us who they are, and they certainly are doing that. So I know that staff is working on coming down with stronger enforcement and getting other agencies involved in looking into the problems that we're having over at Praxis. Ms. Ross, we can look into lighting on the bridge on that. And then Mr. Schisler, thank you, very interesting comments. So let's see what we can do about some of those. I'm going to close it to the public then. The next item of the commission is all right. We have some people here tonight that we would like to recognize, but I'd like to move up item number 7, please. Is that all right? Yes. Is that correct? That is correct. Perfect. Okay. Commissioner, is everyone all right with that?
Yes.
Yeah. Madam Clerk?
Okay.
Item number 7 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving the memorandum of understanding with Broward College for participation in the Broward Up program, authorizing the city manager to execute the MOU, providing for implementation and an effective date.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Commission. My name is Chris Murray. I'm Director of Economic Development. I wanted to welcome this evening President Gregory Hales from Broward College, Dr. Mildred Coyne, and Jennifer St. Louis, our point person for community outreach for Broward College. We couldn't be more excited about this agenda item. We've been waiting for this for almost 4 years, I think, for us to come to Deerfield Beach. It's been offered in other communities, and we've been just waiting our turn, and now it's here. I won't steal all of your thunder. President Hale has a wonderful presentation to tell you about this program, so I'll just turn it over to you.
Excellent. Welcome, President Hale.
Oh, thank you so much, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioner, City Clerk, and of course, Attorney Soroka. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Notwithstanding the fact that it may take me 4 years to get here, we are beyond proud for this moment. So I want to set the stage a little bit. You're going to hear from both my colleague, Dr. Mildred Coyne, and Dr. Jennifer St. Louis. When it comes to the detail of the program, what I want to do is give you a little bit of background on this. Is there who can I prompt to go next? I'll just say next. Perfect. Thank you very much. So you can leave it there. Before I even move on, I became the president of Broward College on July 1st of 2018. Previous to that, serving as the general counsel and vice president for public policy affairs. And when I had the amazing fortune to be able to step into this role, among the things that I asked our team to do first was to recognize that notwithstanding all the things that we had accomplished in an incredibly large institution that was 15,000 students, having won many accolades, including being recognized by Aspen Institute numerous times as one of the top 10 institutions in the country, we had to ask ourselves, are we truly fulfilling our obligation to serve this entire community? A lot of that comes from my own personal experience. I've been living in South Florida for 20 years, but I actually grew up in Queens, New York. And I'll tell you a quick story. I unfortunately grew up in one of the most challenging neighborhoods of New York City, South Jamaica, Queens. It was during the height of the crack epidemic. I had bars on every window of my home. I've seen things that I would never wish upon any person, including friends both to the left and right of my home, lose their lives. And I remember when I was in the 3rd grade and my mother lied about my address so I could go to school in a better neighborhood. And I share that with you because when I was in 6th grade in New York, when I was graduating elementary, I was talking to another student who was also in 6th grade, more affluent than I was, surely. And it was 1989. And I said, isn't this amazing? We're going to be the last class of the decade. And he says to me immediately without any hesitation, no, we're going to be the last class of the millennium because we're going to graduate college in 1999. 2 things. That was the first time I'd ever heard the word college. Second, I was hearing from someone who knew exactly what year he was going to graduate, and he was the exact same age as I was. And so I think consistently about that chasm that we have to bridge. No one should ever find out about an opportunity so potent, so profitable, so important, like college by luck or chance. And so we embarked on this discussion, notwithstanding being diverse. You can see some of the numbers there around our diversity. We have 142 countries of origin, 52 languages spoken among our student body, 65% Black or Latinx. And then there's the economic diversity too. Part of the reality is we're an open access institution. Our credit costs about $85 per credit to go to Broward College. We have 52% of students who are Pell eligible. That means they're coming from the lower levels of the income ladder, much like I was. And what's not up here is about 50% of our students are our first generation college students, much like I was as well. And so we've had a lot of operations and a lot of diversity that you might think of in this picture. Next slide, please. But the question, of course, at the end of the day, which is essentially why we are here before you, is that we asked ourselves the question, who are we missing? Next slide. It starts with, of course, looking at the data. We started with some national data. And this is, I always think about it somewhat disturbing because we look at 50 years ago and the role of higher education. And we think about, if you see in this chart, you see a gap of the top quartile of income earners about 50 years ago had about 40% of their kids going to college. And the bottom quartile of income earners had about 6% of their kids going to college 15 years ago. That's a 34% gap. That gap has actually widened over the last 50 years, where now 62% of those who are in top income quartile have their children going to college, and a mere 13% of those in the bottom income quartile have their kids going to college today. So when we talk about, as we should, the income divide, the wealth divide, and creating opportunity, starts with recognizing that that chasm that I described earlier has only grown. And we have to take at a higher education as the only public higher education institution based in Broward County full responsibility for that, if no one else. Next slide, please. It also comes with a recognition that this is not just something that happened in Broward, but it's a national endeavor. I just showed you the national data, but as we start to focus on zip codes and communities in particular, there's a gentleman by the name of Ross Chetty, who's become a very dear friend that reached out to me very shortly after becoming president of the college, and we've been working together ever since. What you see here is the heat map. Opportunity Atlas, I recommend you and members of your community go online and take a look at it. What it is a platform that will tell you, regardless of zip code, you can type in any zip code in America and it will tell you the likely income outcomes over your lifetime. Said another way, the greatest determining factor of your income outcomes over your lifetime is the zip code that you were born and you grow up. We also know that it's incredibly important that higher education exposure be leveraged in a way that it hasn't been, because that is indeed the lever to economic outcomes that otherwise don't exist, but for their absence. I'm going to introduce you now to Dr. Mildred Coyne, who's a colleague of mine for almost 10 years now, but has jumped in and been an incredible leader in this space to talk to you, not just about the local data, but the work that we're doing, and frankly, the work that we are proudly embarking on together.
Thank you, President Hale, and thank you all for having us here today. Next slide, please. So when we really wanted to dig into who we're missing, the president asked us to really look deeper into our own community. And at the time when we were embarking on this journey, it was August of 2018, and we were looking at a community unemployment rate of about 2.8%. So that was pretty fantastic. Everybody was really feeling like we had this great economy that everyone was enjoying. But when we really started to disaggregate that data and look by zip code, we identified originally 11 zip codes, but we had to pare it down to our first phase of 6 zip codes with the highest unemployment rates between 9 and 13%. And now we've added in, because due to additional resources that we've accumulated because of the work that we've been doing through Broward Up, 5 additional zip codes. That includes, for our first part of our expansion, Deerfield Beach, the city of Deerfield Beach, which we're very excited to be here with you today. One of the other data elements that we looked at was the education attainment levels of those residents within the zip codes that we were looking at. And 54% of the residents in the initial 6 zip codes have a high school diploma or less. 54% have a high school diploma or less, which is really challenging when you consider the labor market that they're facing. So that really only indicates that 27% of these residents have an associate's degree or above. And we know from today's labor market that employment requires education beyond high school, and not always a bachelor's degree. Next slide, please. But when we look at the city of Deerfield, your zip code 33341, we know that you were at the same time having a 9.3% unemployment rate when the whole county itself had a 2.8% unemployment. With 46% of your residents have a high school diploma or less, and 21% have some college, leaving 67% having less than an associate's degree or above. And now, next slide, please. And when you really consider that 70% of the jobs in today's market require education beyond high school, we know that we have to do a better job to connect residents to post-secondary credentials so that they can align more equitably to the labor market and making sure that they can gain access to the good jobs that are available in our communities. Next slide, please. So we set out and established 3 primary goals for Broward Up. And UP stands for unlimited potential because we truly believe that everyone can achieve unlimited potential given the opportunity. The first goal you see there is to increase access to post-secondary education by 3,000. When we did our deep dive into our data, we identified that there was only about 3,000 students coming to us from these 6 zip codes, which really is just unconscionable when you consider we had nearly 63,000 students at the time. So we clearly were not gaining access to those folks that needed us within the communities that we were looking to serve. We also know that we set goal number 2 is to improve education attainment. And education attainment is measured by 25 to 64-year-olds with an associate's degree or higher. And so in these 6 zip codes, it was only 27%, as I had indicated, and 33% in your zip code. But ultimately, we know for goal number 3 that we want to holistically raise economic mobility. And for us, what that means is we want to go up 2 income quintiles or more from the bottom for our community members, because one just isn't enough. And we've seen that play out with the pandemic, that we need people to move up 2 income quintiles or more so that they can have a resilient wage that will weather another pandemic, an economic downturn. Next slide, please. So although the college is an open access learning institution, low cost, we have workforce ready programs, there are still many in the community who cannot access post-secondary education. So we set out to really take a hard look at ourselves, and we looked in the mirror. So you see the original 6 zip codes are shaded in blue with you as the star as our new zip code that we're adding in today. But then the dark blue dots that you see there are the 10 brick and mortar locations that Broward College owns. So we are operating out of those. The only one that's really squarely in the middle of these 6 zip codes is our administrative services in Cypress Creek, and that's not even where we're offering any classes. So we knew that we had to really look at ourselves as well and say, we have to do a better job making sure that we can connect people to the educational opportunities that are available to them. Next slide, please. So we started with the Governor's Job Growth Grant and our partnership with the Urban League of Broward County. And we began offering free workforce training classes at the Urban League under a Broward College flag. So now imagine, if you will, going into the Urban League, a trusted partner, where you know you can receive services, where people will listen and care about you. And now you're also receiving access to free post-secondary credentials with that trusted partner. We're starting to help people see that their access to post-secondary is much more viable. Next slide, please. So with no additional funding from the state to build new buildings or construction, we found viable solutions and partnered with all of these other entities that you see here and created memorandums of understanding with all of these agencies and began leveraging their underutilized spaces so that we could offer for free classes in workforce credentials, workforce certifications and trainings that they need to align to the marketplace, build up their resume, help them build confidence and competence so that they can compete for jobs. But by leveraging all of these partners, you see where we're starting to build the penetration within the communities to be able to offer post-secondary education as a real viable option for people. Next slide, please. And we also, at the same time, we're partnering with all of the municipalities in those 6 zip codes initially. And in those 6 zip codes, there's 12 cities. So we began right away partnering with them, just like we are with you today, to build out a memorandum of understanding where we can work with you to identify spaces and vehicles by which we can help your community and your residents understand what trainings are available to them for free and draw them into an experience with Broward College so that we can help them level up and change their outcomes. Next slide, please. So where we started in 2017-18, that was fall of 2018 for us. We had those 10 original locations. To where we are at the end of 2021, there's an additional 26 locations that we have the availability to offer classes, a true penetration in these Broward Up communities that we've set out to serve. Now I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Jennifer St. Louis, who is the Associate Vice President for Partnership Impact. And she's going to walk you through our outcomes to date and where we are and some of the next steps for the MOU. To be, next slide, please.
What you see here is a visual representation of Broward College presence in Broward Up communities. So you can see that we are strategically using those trusted partnerships and leveraging marketing resources to go into the communities to show that we are bringing Broward College programs and services directly online and into the community. We're doing this in a multitude of ways. And so you can see on this flyer that's handed out at community-wide events, shared widely throughout digital channels, that not only are we coming in and offering free programming, workforce programming, leading in-demand skills and credentials to in-demand careers, but also that there's dedicated career pathway navigators to help residents who may not know where they want to start go ahead, do those assessments, build upon already skills that they're already been doing in the workforce. And so we have a laddering up opportunity where individuals can come in, do short-term programming, as you can see here. We have a lot of skills-based courses. They can start with something like a one-day course in Excel, for example, or process improvement, and then build upon larger programming such as health science or supply chain management. And so you can see that this is some of the opportunities that we're offering. Next slide, please. So since 2018, when we embarked on this journey, we've been able to reach 3,250, more than 3,250 residents, serving them through these free workforce credential programs and awarding more than 2,000 workforce ready credentials. And many, many more individuals have gone through and completed those workshops and communities as well. Next slide, please. And this is my favorite part, is to brag about community members. And we cannot wait to meet Deerfield Beach residents and have them on the accolade wall. So just briefly, I'll share a few of the success stories that we're seeing from residents. Our first individual at the top left, Denise, she sought a workforce credential to save her job. She had been working with the same organization for over 15 years, and they were recently bought out. So she came to Broward College by way of Urban League to go ahead and complete a supply chain management program. In 5 weeks, she was able to complete the program, earn an industry recognized credential, the industry certification. And not only did she go to an employer and save her job, but they created a new role for her in a compliance management role to keep her on in that new organization. Since then, she's actually been offered another job with a city. And she tells us that it's a major step up from where she was. It was already a step up when they created the role for her. And that was from a 5-week program. Now, what's more is we knew that that workforce credential was not enough, that we weren't done with Denise. And so she went on, she completed a technical certificate, a credit-bearing technical certificate at Broward College, an associate of science program, and now she's making forward progress towards her bachelor's degree. And so that's another example of leveling up to continue growing within the workforce and economic mobility. Arnell is another resident who has a unique story. He had some post-secondary education experience. He had earned an associate's degree, but the school that he went to went out of business, and he fell victim to some proprietary lending. And so he was unable to go back and pursue a bachelor's degree though he wanted to. So he re-engaged with post-secondary education, meeting Broward College out at a community event. Broward Up table was set up, and he was speaking with some of the staff members and volunteers. And he went in, he got re-engaged through the process improvement, the project management, workforce training programs. Then through the case management services, he was able to go ahead and create that bridge back into the credit-bearing program to work towards completing his bachelor's degree. And he was able to do that through the emergency funding that was afforded to him through the Broward program. He was able to enroll in that first semester of credit-bearing programming while he was able to work out the financial aid that would cover those programs, but he would not have otherwise been able to have that bridge while he corrected that to pay for that first semester. So I won't take too much time, but I will just highlight briefly our last three. Melanie is the top right, and she had no experience in post-secondary education prior to engaging with Broward College through Broward Up. She transitioned from a high-paced restaurant career in food services to a career in healthcare field. And so she shared with us at the age of 43, she did not think doing a major career change was possible. She completed a medical assisting program, administrative assisting program, and now she is gainfully employed at a doctor's office. And what she was beaming about was the fact that she also, not only did she have access to a higher earning career, but she had access towards benefits that she didn't access when she was working at the restaurant. So that was something that was very beneficial to her. And finally, the last two ladies towards the bottom, Felicia, she was working in a field where she was getting paid less because she didn't have the credential to go along with that field. So she first started Broward Up, did a very short-term workforce credential, then she went in and completed the industry certification and was able to earn $10,000 more a year annually upon completion of that program. And finally, I like to talk about Nadine just because of her experience with our career pathway navigators, case management services that we offered. She was sharing that it was through the guidance and support that she received from her career pathway navigator that really, as Dr. Coyne mentioned, helped her build both that confidence and confidence. She felt so empowered through the support of her navigator that she was enrolled to complete her degree. She felt that she had all the supports to do so, and then bridged over into credit program upon completion of the non-credit workforce program. So again, just love to talk about our participants, as I know I'm going to love to talk about the Deerfield residents who are completing career card programs. Next slide, please. And so not only our own assessments that we've done, and of course the feedback from the residents, but the Florida Tax Watch, they conducted an independent assessment of the value of Broward Up and took a deep dive into the economic benefit of Broward Up on the individual and the community. So the full ROI, return on investment, was quantified as $1 to $19.27 for the individual and $1 to $13.13 for the community economic impact. And this is based on the increased employment, increased public revenues, and decreased dependency on public subsidies. We do have this full report on our website, so if anyone's interested, we can certainly get that to you. But it has been instrumental in helping us secure additional funding through both public and private funders. Next slide, please. And so that leads us to the memorandum of understanding. And it's been a pleasure working with your staff up to date, and I know that I look forward to working with them throughout this partnership. And so the memorandum of understanding, what we do is it's very organic to the community. So each starts out with a template, and then we work with one another to craft it to really meet your individual needs and programs and services that you aim to provide and are already providing within your community. And so it's based on the strategies that you see here. Outlined in the MOU is access strategy for residents, but also for employees. So these are things, access to live and on-demand webinars to really create a white glove service, if you will, bridge from the community directly to Broward College. And we, not only the Broward Up funding that we have available for the residents 33441, but we also want to leverage the other existing resources that the college has for your residents as a whole. And so that's also outlined there in the MOU. With regard to the employment, employees, we also want to be able to upskill any employees of the city that are interested in continuing to grow within the city. Regarding support and attainment, like I mentioned with our career pathway navigators, the residents will have access to a dedicated career pathway navigator to help them do career planning, goal setting exercises, and really helping them to craft that educational and career plan. We will also have workshops for student support skills and overcoming real and perceived barriers to completion. Finally, we know that it's one thing to train the individuals, but we want to ultimately help them get employment. And so we will work with the city to not only leverage opportunities within the city, but also the companies within the city to identify where there's gaps, where we can create training bridges to have the resident go through the training and ultimately be placed into role within the community. And finally, we have a marketing strategy. The marketing strategy, when we do identify the location within the city where we would like to offer this Broward College programming, then we want to come and we want to saturate your community with Broward College. And so we have what we lovingly call our marketing go kit. And we come in with Broward College banners and pull-up signs and motivational posters and even a flag if you're willing to fly a Broward College flag. We had a city who had a flag raising ceremony, and we're right in one of the municipal parks underneath the city's flag at Broward College. And so we want to show your residents that we're here, and it's not a fleeting thing, you're here to stay, we're here to serve them. And one of the opportunities that we also discussed is collaborating on a community mural project where the residents get to share with us what the city, what education, what empowerment means to them. And so we'll be continuing to work with that. But all in all, this is what we look forward to working with you. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
I just wanted to add, one thing, actually, in terms of marketing, assuming this is a pass this evening, we're not gonna let any dust settle on this activity. In fact, we have a press release planned to go out tomorrow morning to announce this partnership. So we're obviously very excited about moving forward with that. And I did want to make sure to acknowledge, I think that Bob Bertram is on the meeting via Zoom. They wanted to call him out in particular, thank him for his support on this. He's been an advocate, for Broward Up and just a big supporter of Broward College and bringing this program to the community. And I wanted to see if maybe Bob wanted to say a few words. I see him.
Outstanding, Mr. Birdsall.
Hi, Chris. Hi, commissioners. Hello, everybody. This is it's kind of a proud day for me. So to watch this come to fruition and watch President Hale get up there and everybody else and talk about what's happening and the possibility what can happen in Deerfield Beach makes me very happy. And I appreciate everybody's commission and patience and all the effort that made this happen. So thank you all very much.
Thank you for your efforts on this as well.
If I may just follow
Yes,
up,
absolutely.
while Mr. Birdsong is still here, I just want to make sure, while you know how much an ardent supporter he is in your city, he is probably just as ardent for Broward College. And it probably was a day or two after we embarked on this work that he wanted to make sure that we had a conversation about trying to bring the respective parties together. So I'll just express my appreciation on behalf of all of Broward College to Mr. Birdsong for his efforts as well. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Hale.
I'm going to turn it over to my commissioners first. Answer any questions that we have. Commissioner Krasky.
Thank you, Mayor. President Hale, while you're standing there, if you ever get the money for brick and mortar buildings, I have 4 acres at Southwest 10th Street at 995. You might be interested.
I'll remember that.
But I just want to thank Chris. Thank you for your efforts, and President Hale for your team coming out tonight. I know your time is precious, so coming out means a lot, especially for something that you didn't really have to attend tonight. That just tells me in particular how dedicated you are to this program and your team and to the city. And I've seen you at other events in our city before, and I look forward to working, with your team, and I know Chris does. So I'll be all in favor of this tonight. And thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner, Vice Mayor Hudak.
Thank you. As a graduate of Broward College a long time ago, I'm also a first generation graduate, college graduate. And I appreciate, the ability to financially get that degree. And BC, it was BCC at the time, now BC, was extremely instrumental in giving me that opportunity. And now I have a daughter who goes to Broward College.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So I fully support Broward College, and I'm so excited to be able to partner or have the city partner with the institution. So I will also be supporting this.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and open it up now to the public. I have Wayne Clark read online. Clark Reed, you might want to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. See difficulty in unmuting tonight. Gwen Clark Reed, 1430 Southwest 6th Way. President Hale, it's good to see you here. And yes, this is definitely something that I, as a resident, support. And of course, as chair of the Education Advisory for the City of Deerfield Beach, we are definitely looking at every aspect of upgrading the education advantages here in the city, because we know that our residents have difficulties in getting certain places, and for you bringing this to us is a plus for the city. So Mayor and Commissioners, I definitely approve of this and looking forward to seeing great things happen here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative. Is there anyone else from the public that care to comment? Not seeing one online. I'm going to close this to public. Commission. I'll say this: this is 4 years, long time coming, and I'm so glad that this finally occurred. And I am fully in support of this, and I look forward to seeing this grow here in the city of Deerfield Beach. And we're really, really excited about having all of you here. So thank you for your efforts. Thank you, staff, for all of your efforts, your city manager, to seeing this come to fruition. So all of our partners out there, I know are very excited about it. And it's a wonderful endeavor for the city of Deerfield Beach. And if you look at that return on investment, $1 to $13.13, that's a tremendous return. And it's something that's going to benefit our residents far beyond anything we'll see. It's going to be life changing. So thank you very much. Two items here. There they are. I'm sorry. Commissioner Preston, Commissioner Parnas.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This was first of all, the presentation was a wonderful presentation. And it shows the impact of what this will be in our community. And as the rest of my colleagues who have spoken, I'm in total agreement with that. And, not often do we have programs that are really on the upper echelon of just having meaning and purpose, and with it bringing impact. And I think that that's what we have here. And with that, I will make a motion to approve.
Excellent. Thank you. Before that, Commissioner Parnas, want to say something?
Yes, I'll second this motion. How's that?
That sounds perfect. Excellent. Commissioner Preston, second by Commissioner Parnas. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Huda,
You got a press release to go tomorrow. Yes.
and Mayor Grant.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much. Yes, if we don't mind, we're going to pause for a moment. Those of us who are up in the dais, we have a picture of the president. Ready?
Well, Ms. Casey.
Thank you all so much.
And Bernie, we'll Photoshop you guys into that picture.
Okay, we are now on consent board appointments. The agenda tonight, items 2 and 3.
Do we have any polls for items 2 or 3 from the commission? Board appointments? Is there anyone from the public who care to comment on item number 2 or number 3? Not seeing any, I'm going to close it to the public. We can make a motion to include both items 2 and 3 in the singular motion.
Motion to
Motion to
approve.
approve.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Hudak. I have a second by, second by Commissioner Parnas. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And passes unanimously.
We are now at the consent portion for agreements and expenditure requests, items 4 through 6 on tonight's agenda.
Do we have anything to pull for items 4, 5, or 6 by the commission?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public who care to comment on items number 4, 5, or 6? Clerk, is anyone written in? I don't see anyone online. I'm going to close it to the public. We can do 4, 5, and 6 together. It will have to be it can be a motion for 4, 5, and 6.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Preston, second by Commissioner Parnas. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Huda,
Yes.
Mayor Grant.
Yes.
Okay, Item number 8 on tonight's agenda is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, supporting the city's membership in the Metro Transportation Engineering and Construction Cooperative, MTEC, approving the interlocal agreement for the creation of the MTEC, authorizing expenditure of $50,000 for the membership fee and $25,000 for the annual fee provided for in the interlocal agreement, providing for execution and an effective date.
Thank you. Mr. Power, you can go ahead and speak first, and we'll have the MPO come down.
I'll go ahead and tee this one up, Mayor. Good evening, David Santucci, City Manager. We have been in conversations with the MPO regarding this item before you. We do have a presentation this evening from members of the MPO, but staff's analysis of this opportunity is that it is in the best interest of the city, and I hope they can articulate that in their presentation tonight. Staff is supportive of this endeavor.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Paul Gavarese from the Broward MPO. Come on.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, duly appointed vice mayors. Paul Gavarese, Broward MPO, my colleague.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I'm Chris Bullis. I'm the Procurement Contracts Manager, Broward MPO.
So I'm going to go over some of the history of MTEC, the Metropolitan Transportation Engineering and Construction Cooperative. That's the last time I'm saying the full time. So MTEC was the answer to a problem. Back in 2018, we had a mayors and elected officials roundtable, which looked at how construction projects, specifically transportation projects, were being executed in Broward County. And they noticed several patterns. Okay. First, that several smaller municipalities had the burden that, the smaller cities, less budget, smaller staff, yet same amount of responsibility for these capital projects. We also noticed that these smaller cities also had a greater transportation need and not necessarily the staffing to fulfill it. We also looked at the award of these major transportation projects. Happened so infrequently that some of the smaller cities could not justify having a full-time transportation staff. And just so you know, our largest city is 182,000. Our smallest city is 26 people. So our cities run the gamut as far as population and resources that they have. Additionally, some other factors came into play. The Florida Department of Transportation, FDOT, made the decision to enter the delivery of federally funded all-state projects using LAP. If you're not familiar with the LAP process, it's long, it's arduous, there's a lot of paperwork involved, and it requires a specific set of skills.
Is that what LAP stands for? Is long, arduous paperwork?
No, but I think we should make that.
I think I like that.
We'll bring that up instead. That's the local agency program. Sometimes develop a LAP program that won't be. So, all right. And through our analysis, we determined that every time a city takes on a LAP project, they need to spend $100,000 in unbudgeted costs between personnel and effort that has to go into administering these transportation projects. Next slide, please. So our board of elected officials looked at, well, how can we solve this problem? How can we get our cities together to pool resources and make this process more efficient? We looked at a couple of mechanisms: C corporations, cooperatives, and the Florida Interlocal Cooperation Act of 1969. Next slide. And it was on the Interlocal Cooperation Act of 1969 that we landed as being the most efficient means and the most effective of bringing all the cities together in order to accomplish this common goal. Next slide. So once again, why this act? One, it's a known legal process. The interlocal agreements set terms and structures of cooperation, and it's flexible enough to meet these specific needs. Okay. So why MTEC? So what we're looking at here is a group with centralized engineering expertise to combine everything for bid package preparation, construction, oversight, inspection, right of way, etc.
We're also looking at centralized returns, efficient and timely project delivery, a centralized public involvement team who can consistently deliver messages to your residents. And the city only buys the services necessary without the need to maintain long-term staff. I like to call this is your Costco for construction. Okay, so a few elements of MTech, and this is meant to be a very lean organization. It's going to have a self-governing board based off the founding members. It's going to be self-funded, so through the project board. So as long as projects are coming through, MTech will have funding. And the municipality members submit an annual due to cover the minimum overhead. Let's go there. So I previously mentioned founding members. We have 3: the cities of Hollywood, Plantation, and Pompano Beach. So they felt so strongly about getting MTech off the ground. They are contributing $100,000 apiece of seed money. And there are non-founding member contributions, $50,000. And with each year, there'd be a $25,000 annual membership fee. And these can be adjusted. We put that fee out there as what we anticipated to be the minimum that we need. But once again, it's going to be a lead organization, and that fee can go down. And we are asking for a minimum 5-year commitment so that we can plan out our processes and our long-term plans. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ross, who's going to go through the parts of the contract. And
Thank you. So the agreements for the creation of MTech, there are 2 separate ILAs. The ILA presented to you this evening is for the creation of interlocal agreements. We already have the 3 founding members of Hollywood, Plantation, and Pompano Beach. It will be the same ILA that we'll be executing this evening if approved. That basically forms the actual development membership and as well as sets forth the actual agency. The second is an interlocal agreement, ILA, which will be presented to the MPO board. That'll be for services provided from the MPO to MTech. Like to say that pretty much startup services that basically it'll be in-house as well as contracted services for the MTech so that they'll have their startup. Next slide, please. So the purpose of the ILA, this is directly from the ILA agreement itself, it's to consent to and authorize the creation of MTech in order to facilitate the planning, design, and construction of transportation-related projects throughout Broward County. It's important to know that there is a firewall between the planning activities of the Broward MPO and the design and construction activities of MTech. Keep in mind, the design construction activities, all of MTech projects will have to be through a lab process. So it's important that we have that separation of responsibilities to comply with all the lab requirements for those contracts and activities that MTech will be conducting. MPO assumes no financial responsibility for the MTech projects. Next slide, please. So the authorized activities of MTech. First is the Federal Aid Project Administration. I think we talked a little bit about LAP, and what we'll talk, that has to do with LAP certification. We expect to initially have a project lab certification. The goal for MTech is to receive an agency certification, so we do not have to go through the application process for each project. So also liability of the parties for federal aid project completion, touch on in the next slide. And also the local project administration, which provides for provision of services to municipal members, payment for services, and selection of services. Next slide, please. So the lab certification, pretty much MTech may become lab certified by FDOT, and upon certification under the lab, MTech may contract for the project delivery of federal aid projects on behalf of FDOT. As far as the liability of the parties for federal aid project completion, normally the municipal member requesting the project is responsible for non-eligible expenses and cost overruns. MTech is never responsible, nor does the MPO. This typically occurs if there's any extra work once you're out there constructing and things have to change and there's a change order, and if it's something that may not be funded, that would be something in which be consideration as far as extra work being the funds being provided by the municipality. That would be a typical instance. Next slide, please. So for the local project administration, municipal members always retain the option to use MTech or not. It'll always be your option as a city to take on a project using MTech through that process or not. You will not be required to do so on a project basis. Project costs and responsibilities are addressed in individual project-based agreements between FDOT, MTech, and municipality. I think you may have heard of these LAP agreements in the past. They're actually going to be three-party agreements between the MTech, the municipality, and FDOT. Broward MPO will not be a party to those individual agreements and will have no responsibility for funding beyond the TIP program funds. Next slide, please. So the second ILA we briefly touched on just a couple points is the support agreement, administrative support services that Broward MPO and MTech will execute. And there's two facets to it. One is in-house support. That's the current Broward MPO staff and what they could provide as far as services. Those administrative services for assistance with board meetings, legal, finance, a long list of procurement. And then the BMPO contract support, which we plan on putting an RFP out for professional management and administrative support services. For those functions that would be in addition to what the MPO could support in-house. Next slide, please. That brings us to what we always like to have as our final slide, which is the MTech implementation schedule. And the first two slides, founding members approved to sign the ILA. That is underway right now. We do have on the commission meetings for approval for Hollywood, Plantation, and Pompano Beach to execute the new ILAs, and we anticipate bringing those back to our April MPO board meeting. Mr. Mayor, and administrative services agreement is underway. That's in draft. We're aggressively moving forward with trying to bring that forward also to the MPO board meeting. Draft MTech policies and procedures, they've been underway for quite a while now. As you can imagine, there are quite a few policies and procedures to have in play for a new entity, as well as being compliant with LAP procedures. Our goal is to have MTech operations begin in the second quarter of 2022 and to obtain FDOT LAP certification sometime in the summer. Procure the key consultant resources summer or fall of 2022. And that brings us right in line with the new state fiscal year of 2023, where we will start seeing and beginning actual projects as an entity. Next slide, please. And that brings us to part of the presentation as far as discussion or any questions that any of you may have.
Sure. I'm going to try to condense this a little bit, maybe in an explanation that a lot of the projects that we have coming forward, that we're all trying to participate as municipalities, these LAP projects, anything comes from the federal government, require some very specific certifications and requirements that most cities don't have on staff, or be extremely costly for us based on certain projects, for us to hire someone or a staff really to just handle that one particular project. If you notice, the three founding cities are not small cities. These are large cities. So this is not a problem just for the small cities. This is something that's for the large cities as well, including us. Am I incorrect in saying that? So what this does is allow an organization in which we're able to, I'm sorry, is that correct?
You are correct.
Okay, good. I have a wig trim. I just want to clarify that. What this does is allows all of the municipalities to pull together with a group organization that's affiliated but not completely connected to the Broward MPO. So we can pool these resources and use those for each one of our projects. While it seems like we're competing with each other for the same dollars at times, there's really not going to be that kind of conflict of interest with that. Is that correct? So we won't have that issue. This is really about pooling resources and building a collective that allows us to have specified and very specific certifications staffing and procedures that helps us get through. Believe it or not, it's a government agency that's cutting through red tape, it sounds like. to me. So that's something that's good for Broward County. I think it's good for the city of Deerfield Beach. I see Mr. Powers nodding his head, and I don't think Mr. Santucci would let this on the agenda if he didn't agree. So I'm fully in support of this. I think it's an important thing for us to do, and it's going to help us streamline and get some work done here, not just in our city, but in Broward County. So I'm fully supportive of it. Vice Mayor, you have a question?
Just a couple of quick questions. First of all, the $25,000 annual fee. It says it could go up, could go down. What guarantees are that, next year it's not gonna be $100,000? The other question I have is how are you going to prioritize projects? You're trying to get all 31 cities in Broward County, into your organization, where you're gonna have a multitude of projects, and you're gonna have to prioritize when all of these cities are trying to get their projects done in a timely manner. Will the, for the $50,000 entry fee, all of that, is there a city representative that is going to be on your board that can help, make sure that our projects are not getting behind Pompanos or Hollywoods or Plantations or whatever the case may be? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yes, I'll try to take those in order. As far as the $25,000 membership fee, there's going to be a board. And like I said, we're going to keep this lean. And the only time that we incur cost, that MTech incurs cost, that MTech incurs costs is when there's projects to be had. There's a reason the MPO is hosting this, keep the overhead fees to a minimum. That $25,000 maintenance fee is just for the overhead. And then as projects come online, they're going to be self-funded. As far as the $50,000, so the founding members are the ones who have the representative on the board. These are open sunshine meetings. There's nothing to prevent you from participating. And then also these are at the end of the day, municipal projects. Your staff can participate fully in the process to whatever degree they see fit. And the last one, as far as prioritization goes, these are projects that have already been prioritized by the Broward MPO board, but by the mayor through our TIP. And they already have a prioritization process. And because FDOT is no longer going to be the implementing agency, MTech will be. So you're going to get the same project delivery. It's just going to be implemented by MTech and not FDOT.
And if I may add as well, that the board will have the ability to look into expanding. So those 3 founding members as a board will have an opportunity to discuss, further expansion as far as some of the members, such as Deerfield Beach, can be represented on that. So, and then the same, I think it was said earlier as well, that $25,000 can be adjusted. I understand the concern of it being adjusted up. My understanding is that that's pretty much a contingency. It should not exceed. We don't know. We don't have actual dollars, but if anything, the hope would be that that might be actually lowered, on an annual basis. We just don't know yet. But as Paul said, it's really just to cover those particular administrative costs that otherwise the project itself will cover.
Yeah, I mean, my concern is that, Pompano Hollywood Plantation, they're gonna make sure that their projects get done, and everybody else, when they get done, they get done. That's my concern.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. That's based on already agreed upon selected timeline. Commissioner Grosky.
Thank you. So that was just to follow Vice Mayor Hudak. That was one of my questions, is that it says in the backup that the board is composed of 3 members, which are from Pompano, Plantation, and Hollywood. And so, Mayor, you don't have a concern with those 3 monopolizing the board?
No, I don't. I think there is the way that it is compromised, or comprised and put together, and what the process is, I am not worried about them having that ability to analyze the situation. They still have to follow the process that we have in place in what we have already scheduled ahead of time, so I'm not worried about that.
Okay. And then,
Mr. Santucci, did you have a comment on that?
If I may, yes, because that was a concern of mine as well. But I think it would be helpful if you could explain the duties of the board members for one, but I'd also like to say that as it is right now, there are 3 founding members who comprise the board. I was a little reluctant to get in as one of the original founding members. Just don't want to jump off the cliff first. Want to see what this thing was all about first and make sure that this was in the best interest of the city. But as it was stated, there may be the ability to, if the board does decide to expand. And I think originally they were contemplating 5 original board members. So that could not be expanded. And I think the question then becomes, does the city of what does one of the city of Deerfield Beach commissioners want to be a representative on that board, understanding what those roles and responsibilities will be? And if you could expand upon that, I would appreciate it.
while they're arm wrestling to decide who's going to answer that question, it does say in the backup as well that the board may expand to 5. Right. Say shall or will, so it may. So there's no guarantee that Deerfield would get a future seat, but that is a possibility.
And as far as the responsibilities of founding board members, they will be the decision makers of the MTech entity. Originally, will be projects that will be brought before them, contracts for approval and execution for design, CE&I services, construction. That'll be their primary focus. But I think getting back to the projects and with the MPO and Mr. Mayor, yeah, that's absolutely the case, that the projects have already been prioritized. They're already set. So it's not that the MTech board is going to be reprioritizing projects and moving forward. I'm not a programs person, but I do know that through the MPO that those projects have already been set as far as those priorities.
I think maybe it's important to emphasize what the limitations are of the board and what they can and cannot do when it comes to these projects that might quell some of the concerns of my colleagues. So they don't have the ability to reprioritize. They don't have the ability to put their cities ahead of other cities, correct?
Correct. The board is they're the board directors for MTech, where the contract comes through. They'll approve them. It's more of an administrative function than they're not ruling boards. It's really to make sure that the state of the main organization. And as far as the expansion 5, we originally had 5 cities lined up. Unfortunately, due to circumstances, 2 of them dropped out. So we revised the ILA to get this off the ground with just the 3 members. And that's because we are up against that FY23 wall where MTech really needs to be started before FY23 starts. So we can have everything in line, all the contracts ready and set up for the next fiscal year together.
And I will say it's being a representative for the MPO from the city of Deerfield Beach sitting up there. I can tell you if MTech fails in these areas in which there's concern, the MPO board itself, I think, would be very swift and strictly outnumber the 3 members that are on there and making any kind of changes or a discontinuation of any type of services and procedures that we had, should that occur, in my opinion. I feel very strongly about that. It's because at that point, all of us have kind of come together and agreed on this and recognize the issues that we have, and we know that this benefits the greater good, but it was never set up in which the first 3 in the door are the ones that get an upper hand in these projects.
I do have a follow-up question, if it's okay.
Sure.
It sounds like Deerfield is going to be number 4. Are there other cities that this is pending or on their agendas to join as well, or is this it?
So we're in communications with the cities of Pembroke Pines and the town of Pembroke Pines and the town of Beatty. It would be combined would be the next three members, the next three non-founding members.
I'll see any other questions from the commission. Anyone from the public here to comment on this item? Let's see anything in here. I don't see anything on. I do see Gwen Clark Reed. Go right ahead.
Gwen Clark Reed, 1430 Southwest 6th Way. Thank you, Mayor, for recognizing me. My question to about this whole thing is, these projects you said have already been approved. These are projects that are already approved by the MPO. And
Yes,
then this board will then, what will this board do with these projects if they've already been approved by the MPO? Are you now saying that you're taking over the responsibility after the MPO to then go ahead with the design and engineers for these projects? I want to get a clear understanding. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. It's going to be MPO plans, prioritizes, and funds projects. And at the time, the agreement is that FDOT was going to be the implementing agency. FDOT has stepped back from that role. So MTech was created to fill that back.
So what would necessarily happen when it came to these projects that the MPO had already approved? FDOT previously, who had the expertise and the ability to do this, has decided that they don't want to spend the money or the time or their staffing to do that, and it's calling on the responsibilities of the municipalities to do much of the work that FDOT has historically done. Am I incorrect in that?
You are 100% correct.
Okay. So FDOT has said, we're not going to do it anymore. We're not going to pay for it. It's all you cities have to do this. Now think about that from a transportation aspect of very specific transportation projects that now the experts that have the staffing and have the ability to do it have said, we're not doing it anymore. We're not going to pay for it anymore. It's all on you now. That becomes very difficult for every city, from Fort Lauderdale down to West Park. So really what's happening is MTech is stepping in to take over the job that FDOT was previously doing with getting these federally funded projects moving forward. Does that answer your question, Sure. I don't see anyone else online. We're going to close it to the public. Commission.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Hudak, second by Commissioner Drosky. We have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnett,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hudak,
Yes.
and Mayor Gay.
Yes.
Okay, we are now on item number 9. Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, authorizing the city manager to send a letter to the Florida Department of Transportation, District 4 Secretary regarding the Southwest 10th Street Connector Project, providing for implementation and effective date.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening again. Speaking of FDOT not wanting to pay for things, this item is before you to discuss some outstanding issues that I believe we still have with FDOT. We are at a point in time now where we are being asked to start to look at various agreements that FDOT wants us to enter into, more specifically a utility work by highway contractor agreement. There's actually going to be 2 of those. One will be utilities that FDOT would be responsible for funding, and then the utility work by highway contractor at the city expense, of which FDOT would like the city to pay for. Additionally, there are some right-of-way memorandum agreements that need to be signed. They're looking for those particular 3 agreements to be executed by June of this year. Additionally, actually, in fact, all the ones that have been mentioned, they want us to enter into by June of this year. The landscape and irrigation system maintenance agreement, which I believe there's still some disagreement on that aspect of the project as well, and also the lighting maintenance So I'm going to talk about the impacts of these agreements as it relates to the letter, the draft letter that you have in the backup, and what that can mean. There seems to be 4 major issues that I can tell that we still need to resolve with FDOT. First would be the addressing the impacts that result from FDOT's proposed right-of-way acquisitions for the project. This is actually kind of new to the project, and it really hasn't been exposed to the level that it has up to this point, because I don't think FDOT at any other point in time until now, and still we have not seen the full documentation, the amount of right-of-way that they need to acquire to complete this project. And when I say acquire right-of-way, I mean taking private property that is currently either an existing business is on, or an undeveloped property that has the potential for future development, that they'll be turning into right-of-way where the city will either lose that revenue or never see that revenue again. So that's something that they have not addressed with us, and how they plan to mitigate that. I don't think that they honestly were even thinking of mitigating that impact to the city in any way. Additionally, there's a very unique opportunity for the region, for Broward County, for the city of Deerfield Beach and our neighbors, to establish a reclaimed water line straight up and down where this project will go. The county recently installed a reclaimed water main along Power Line Road. I'm sure if you drove Power Line over the past year or so, you would remember that project. The road was tore up pretty good. And that was to install a reclaimed water line. And we have the unique ability to piggyback off of that infrastructure and run a trunk line down 10th Street that could be used not only within the city of Deerfield Beach, but could be used in our neighboring communities, whether it's Pompano, Hillsborough Beach, perhaps across the canal to Boca. The possibilities are there. I'm not saying that would happen, but the possibilities are there. But more importantly, it has the unique ability to use that water line to irrigate the Southwest 10th Street project and the landscaping that we should see on that project moving forward. There's a disagreement there in terms of who should be responsible for paying for that cost, or perhaps just an interpretation of state statute as it relates to FDOT saying that this is a betterment. But conversely, there's language in state statute that speaks to FDOT using creative ways to conserve water, and one of those ways can be the use of reclaimed water. Also, there is definitely, I think, some work to still be done and decisions to be made, or confirmations that we need from FDOT as it relates to the landscaping and the maintenance. Currently, the project proposes $4 million worth of landscaping. Now, FDOT is required to fund 1.5% of their total construction project costs for landscaping. That doesn't mean necessarily on this very particular project. It means in their overall, probably annual budget. But come to think of the fact that $4 million equates to approximately a project cost of, I think it's $270 million. We know that this project is somewhere upwards of $800 million. So they're falling short quite a bit on the landscaping, where those landscaping costs at 1.5% are somewhere closer to $12 million. Now, I'm not saying that $12 million worth of landscaping and the preparation of that landscaping, the irrigation is what's needed. I'm not a landscape estimator, but I think $4 million certainly falls quite short of that. And the state statutes also speak to enhanced landscaping that can be provided within these projects and maintained by FDOT. They're yet to really acknowledge that or speak to what that enhanced landscaping could be for the project under their long-term maintenance. At this point, they have said that they're willing to take over the maintenance for 2 years for the grow-in period and then turn that maintenance responsibility over to the city. Lastly, recognizing that the code committee was very adamant about being creative and very forward-thinking and looking at various enhancements that this majorly impactful project that we'll have during construction and after for the city of Deerfield Beach. The city has requested decorative lighting to be installed within the local corridor. Once again, FDOT is happy to do it, but on the city's dime and on the city's dime for the long-term maintenance. These are points that I truly feel uncomfortable with moving forward on the execution of any of these agreements until such time as FDOT has heard us out and, quite frankly, heard the commission. And that's why I've asked that this letter be passed by resolution of the city commission, which I hope you'll support. As we just talked about, Mayor Danz is on the MPO, and I believe he has some things he wants to say in regards to the MPO and specifically this project and discussing that with the MPO. But the one thing I do not have in the letter, which is actually a recommendation that I would make at this point, in light of the fact that FDOT was a little preemptive and provided a letter to me just last week on Friday, basically saying that they will not fund the reclaimed water line and they will maintain the landscaping for 2 years and return it to the city. Was a response that we recently received, and I provided that letter to you. But I think we need to give them also a time certain to respond on the letter, to hold their feet to the fire a little bit, on responding to our what I believe are very reasonable requests, like total project cost and impact to the city. I would make the recommendation that we request that they respond to this letter definitively in writing prior to the MPO meeting that will occur in April. With that, I will shut up now.
Thank you, Chief. So, after this long process that we've had, very painful process of going on 7 years, Paul, is that about what we've been dealing with here at 10th Street now?
2 kids ago.
What's that? 2 kids ago. 2 kids ago. Yes. It was, it's beginning to have the feeling of buying a timeshare and being told, we're going to work out some of the finer details when we get closer to closing. And here we are at closing, and they're ignoring all the promises that were made from the very beginning. From the minute we started this, and with our co-committee, which was primarily made up of many Deerfield Beach residents or parties, there was a lot of promises made saying, we had some of these requests right from the very beginning, and they said, we are not at that point right now. So if you consider the engagement we had early on, where we would show up at an NPO meeting or have these public workshops, we had 50, 100, 200 people show up in the city of Deerfield Beach, engaged, participating, with the promise that FDOT told them, now is not the time to discuss some of these finer detailed points like landscaping, lighting, collecting water, anything like that. They have told us there will be a date in the future for us to have those discussions. Conveniently now, they have spent all these years and times that people have either passed away, gone away, or have disengaged to some point, believing there will be a date in the future to have these discussions. And right now, I feel like FDOT is trying to blow past the public input, ignore the fact that they made a lot of promises to think outside of the box, which is one of their very first directives given by the Code Committee and the Broward NPO, was to think outside of the box, to treat this project not like your regular FDOT project, but something completely different. One of the issues that we had, the very first issue we talked about, is acquisition. While there was some minor conversation about, and it was at the time when they were talking about tunneling, about possibly doing a claim to take some private property during the construction portion, which would of the project, which would primarily affect 1 or 2 businesses at Powerline and 10th Street. There was no discussion at any point about trying to put the displaced water and runoff from where it needed to go, because they said, well, we believe we can put it in Century Village. We'll work that out. We're not really worried about having to acquire any other land in any other areas. The plans change in the project. The fear of having businesses close to 10th Street Powerline being taken appeared to go away. But what they never told us is one thing that's important for everybody to remember, is when they talked about removing water from a project or taking runoff and putting it in a certain place, they say, well, we have plenty of lakes over in Century Village, which is, I believe, what they directly told us. That implies that it's a matter of just taking that water and putting it in another existing body of water, and maybe increasing its capacity. Well, it doesn't really work that way. What that means is they got to displace that water and dig another hole to put that water in, which is what their plan was for Century Village, which was never explained through this several-year process of going through this. Now they've got to the point where they finally reached an agreement with Century Village, which was painful, but they got there. But their idea was to take some of the old golf course that had been converted to a park in Century Village, pay Century Village for that, and then dig the holes to put the water in there. Problem was, it's an old golf course. Arsenic contamination is an issue when it comes to fertilizers, and which is very common, not unusual when it comes to golf courses. It's a very common problem. But the fee to mitigate that, I think, went over $20 million, if I remember correctly, $22 million, I'm saying. So they abandoned that. So they said, okay, we got to put the water somewhere. We're going to start grabbing this private property, different areas, pay them the fair market prices of what they do when they eminent domain property. But that takes off about $100,000 in current market value from the city of Deerfield Beach in taxes we'd be taking a year. $100,000 lost right off the bat in this project. That is not what was discussed. That was not what was presented. And they will try, and FDOT has already tried to say, well, we did talk about claiming property. Never to this level, never what they're talking about, certainly not in the direction this is going. When we talk about the reclaimed water line, they say this is a betterment, but it also says that you can be creative in how you're going to manage and maintain the landscape. This is creative. It's the best way to do it. We talk about betterment. Betterment makes it seem like we're asking to put in gold toilets or water fountains along this pathway. That's not what's happening. What we're looking to do is you're adding in landscaping that what doesn't exist now. We're looking for a more environmentally friendly and cheaper way to do that. And they, for some reason, think that's a betterment. I think their interpretation of it is wrong, and I think it's just a lazy way for FDOT to go about trying to do the status quo and not putting forward the right amount of money that they should be putting towards this project. From the beginning, this project was looking at $1 billion when we were talking about tunneling, which they were all for until they told us that they can't do it because of different circumstances. Now that that project, the overall cost has gone down, they still seem to be wanting to challenge. They're going with their, in my opinion, their lazy way of interpretation of their FDOT rules and not going outside the box. When it comes to the landscaping, they're going on the cheap, in my opinion, of the overall problem. It shouldn't be that way. Now they're trying to tell us they're throwing us a bone by saying they'll maintain the first 2 years of maintenance while this gets established. The truth of the matter is, I believe that is standard operating FDOT procedure. That is nothing that they're giving us that's anything different. I believe that that is what they normally do in any given project. So thank you for doing what you already are legally obligated to do. You're doing me no favors. When it comes to decorative outdoor lighting, again, this is something the public was fed when we had hundreds of people there saying, hey, we're going to address that. We're going to do it. It's going to be special. It's going to be nice. Now is not the time to talk about it. But now the time to talk about it is here, and there's no one in the room to talk about it. That is what FDOT does to a T every single time there's a project. Wear down the public. Don't bring them in there. When there's mass numbers, don't address these really finite items at that time and wait till we can drone everybody down until you have nobody in the room. Well, that is one of the benefits of having people with memory that know that that's not what was promised and that's not what was said in 7 years worth of meetings, not just with the MPO or FDOT, but in any of the community meetings we've had, whether it be from an HOA or talking to even businesses out there. So those of us that were there know that it's not what was insinuated, promised, or the goal of what the code committee was to do this. So I am asking for this letter to be sent to the Broward MPO. I'm asking to be put on the agenda of the Broward MPO, which we have the opportunity for members to submit letters that we can discuss it at the MPO. I am going to ask that we try to coordinate make sure that we have citizens there. If that means providing transportation like we've done in the past with these projects, to have citizens show up at this MPO meeting when this is discussed, just not necessarily to speak out, but to show in number that people are still engaged, people are still interested in this project, and people are going to hold those on the MPO board and FDOT accountable for promises that were made throughout this 7-year project. So I ask for your support in this letter, and I ask that for us to get this out as soon as possible. I'm really glad that Mr. Cavarese is here to hear all of this, and I know we talked to Director Stewart from the MPO, so this is not going to be a surprise as this letter comes to the Commissioner Grosky and Commissioner Parnas.
Thank you, Mayor. We have always said on this project that the devil is going to be in the details, and here we are. It's like deja vu all over again. And I, like you, I mean, you were commissioner during this entire process, Mayor. So you lived it firsthand, and I actually was the chair of the code committee, and I lived it firsthand when we were in hand-to-hand combat over this, and we attended dozens upon dozens upon dozens of meetings, and we discussed this. And I was there every step of the way, and nowhere along the line did we discuss these details that are now coming before us that is being presented by FDOT. We've always discussed during this project that this was going to be the gateway to Broward County, that this was going to be a premier project, that actually FDOT could put a feather in their cap and think outside the box and say, hey, this is something different that we've done, that this corridor is not unique, it is unique to other projects in the county and in South Florida. And so I'm extremely disappointed that they've changed some personnel around and they've conveniently forgotten what we've discussed for the last 7 years. No to paying on our dime. We have said, and we have been very consistent from day one, that the city of Deerfield Beach is not going to be paying for these improvements. And we've also said that we are not going to be paying for the maintenance going forward. This is something that we have said that although it's a project we don't want, we're willing to work with you, but you have to make some of these concessions along the way. You talked about it being a $1 billion project initially, yes, because it was supposed to be underground tunneling. Well, now the underground tunneling, in quotation marks, is one small quarter-mile slip ramp. That's the only tunneling for this project. So they're saving a ton of money on this project. It's closer to $500 million instead of $1 billion. And we're not getting the benefit of those savings. The landscaping, the lighting, I think those are minor asks, minor asks for the project that we're getting to go forward and the cost associated with it. So to go on the cheap now, after discussing this project for the last 7 years, after coming to agreements, after understanding that this is something that they needed to work with the city of Deerfield Beach, and now that we're at the point where it's time to discuss the details, that doesn't matter anymore. Somehow we've forgotten where we come from in the last 7 years. And if we know we need to go to an MPO meeting and blow it up again, we will. Not what I want to do, and I'm sure Secretary O'Reilly doesn't want us there doing this again. So I'm all in favor of this letter going out as well. I read the proposed letter. It's very well written. I think it's to the point and discusses our concerns. And they do need to respond in writing, because I'm a no vote on anything that comes FDOT up here on these agreements going forward. I don't know what that means if they get rejected or not, but I mean, I am just livid now that we are at this point after having all these discussions. As the chair of the code, we were very adamant on what our concerns were with the city of Deerfield Beach. And the code committee consisted of 18 members, if you recall. 9 were from the city of Deerfield Beach and 9 were from the surrounding communities. And we discussed in brutal detail, and we had some very animated, that's putting it mildly, conversations about this project, going forward. But at the end of the day, we did reach a consensus, and that consensus was not to trample over Deerfield Beach and make this a gateway project that we could live with, even though we didn't want it. And by putting in these extra features to kind of with the landscaping and the lighting, and now all of a sudden to forget all of that is just extremely disappointing and frustrating and even maddening, to be honest with you. And to think that we're going to go away or we're going to forget, or we're going to say, okay, now at the last minute is not the right approach. It's not a right approach. I know our staff has been engaged with the Florida Department of Transportation, and to be ignored or our concerns disregarded is just extremely troubling. And if we need to go to the MPO, Mayor, I will be the first one there with you, but this needs to be worked out and worked out fast.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Parnas?
Yes, I have a problem with FDOT. When they try to win me over in Century Village and my district, I asked a simple question. While you're doing this project, east and west traffic that used to go on 10th Street will be going on Green Road and Hillsborough. Green Road now is a speedway as it is. There is one light at Power Line. The next one is at Military Trail. They said, we'll go to the county and we have ways of getting that light. 2 months later, the project manager says, we can ask, but we can't do anything. So I said, your word to me is useless. You told me you have ways to make the county come through so people can get out of their driveways without getting killed by putting a light somewhere between Military and Power Line to slow traffic. I don't trust them unless I see it in writing and it's notarized with 18 witnesses swearing that it's going to happen. And yes, I recommend sending this letter and whatever we have to do to protect the city of Deerfield Beach and its residents. I mean, if this project is going to take 2 years, 3 years, 4 years to do, what are the people going east and west on Green Road, Wiles Road, going to do with the increased doubling or tripling of traffic? I don't get an answer from FDOT. None. At least Hillsborough Boulevard has some traffic lights. There are none on Green Road between Power Line and Military. When they did a ticket blitz, in 2 days, they gave out 96 speeding tickets. In 2 days. So please send a letter. And if we have to go to the MPO, I will be not behind you, but with you. Day or night, whatever it takes. And if I have to get buses from the village, we'll show up in force.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that. For a motion.
Motion to send the letter.
We have a motion from Commissioner Drosky. I'll take that as a second from Commissioner Parnas. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
We are now at comments by administration and legal. Just a couple brief comments from legal tonight. As you may know, the legislative session ended yesterday with several bills being sent to the governor.
We have to do number 10, don't we? Number 10?
We have comments by administration and legal first, and then we're going to go to city commission.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. So at the next meeting, I'll speak to some of the bills that may have been sent to the governor, see if he signs them, but just a couple of bills that we were tracking that could have had a significant, in my view, potentially negative impact on the city that died within the last week or so. The sovereign immunity bill that I've been mentioning that would have increased the city's liability exposure caps, that died, and that was HB 985. The Senate bill version was 974. Also, that's correct. That's correct. They were not able to reconcile those two bills, and they were not approved. And also, we were tracking Senate Bill 280, which was the companion bill, was House Bill 403. This would have imposed new requirements for cities and counties for adoption of ordinances, including the preparation of a business impact estimate for each ordinance. That would have been required going forward. So that also did not pass. And just a little preview for the next meeting, a couple of the bills that were approved and were sent to the governor. And as far as I know, as of today, have not yet been signed, that I'll be mentioning later, is a bill related to business damages. And that is Senate Bill 620 with respect to certain businesses able to document certain things and potentially sue the city for ordinance changes. And also there is House Bill 105 which, regarding the regulation of smoking. So I'll be speaking more about those at the next meeting, unless you have questions now. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to the city manager for his comments.
The only comment for this evening is a follow-up to my comment last meeting, which is the discussion regarding having commissioners be in a hybrid format where we have 3 in person and 2 via Zoom. So I just bring that back to the table as it was discussed that that's how we would proceed by bringing this up at tonight's meeting.
For some clarity.
Yes, please. Thank you.
I'm for bringing everyone back, but that's up to everyone else's level of comfort. Commissioner Parnas?
I think we can come to a compromise. And being that this is it, we can maintain the way we're doing it, except that if a commissioner feels like coming, we welcome him. If he feels he'd like to be here, he not be removed or restricted from being here at any commission meeting. I mean, I'm looking at the audience, and if I recall, we had a pretty good crowd at the last meeting. And we didn't separate them the way we're separated. We didn't say you can't come. Only 14 people could come, not 60. We let them come. Why are we being restricted more than the public? I feel that, you know, we should be able to come if we want to. We want to be here in person. We should be able to be here. Those who feel they'd like to stay on Zoom, okay.
City Attorney, do you have any comments on that?
Well, you know, we're long past the emergency order, so it's really up to the commission. You always, you know, you still, of course, as we have maintained a majority of the commission present for quorum purposes. And, you know, a while back, the commission made the determination that the circumstances warranted allowing for this type of video participation by the other 2 members. So it's really up to the commission, however you want to handle it going forward.
All right, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we have an obligation to be here. I mean, we originally, you know, due to the pandemic, made this accommodation, but there comes a point in time where we have an oath to uphold, and we've made a commitment to be here. And I think unless there are some, you know, underlying health reasons, I think we should be here. I think it's at that point.
I would imagine that extenuating circumstances, which a certain commissioner cannot make as long as we're still doing Zoom meetings, we can do a Zoom meeting.
Yes, Mayor, that was going to be my suggestion for the discussion is that if it's the will of the commission to bring back all 5 members to the dais, of course, we're still going to be doing this hybrid format. And if a commissioner, for whatever reason, could not attend in person, they could still have that opportunity to attend via Zoom.
I think that's the best way to go about it. Does that work for everyone?
Works for me.
Yeah.
Commissioner Preston?
So are we saying that we're going to stay with the hybrid, which is a combination of Zoom and in person, but if a person chooses to come in person, that they are welcome? Is that what we're saying?
I think that the main point is that everyone should be here in attendance unless there's a circumstance that would prevent you from coming, whether it be a health reason, whatever the reason may be, then you can participate via Zoom. But the goal is to have the entire board here for a commission meeting.
I'm okay with I'm actually very comfortable with which I think is the safest and the best. I don't know that this is the time to change the format that we have. A friend of mine, daughter, recently passed away young of COVID-19. She passed away. It was a reminder to me that we're not done with this thing. And maybe we are making some significant progress and it's trending in the right direction. But I'm more comfortable myself with the format that we presently have. So that's where I am on on this issue.
Okay, so maybe the compromise is that if a fourth member who would normally be doing it from Zoom can come to attend if they so choose. Is that all right?
Yeah, I think that's fine, Mayor. The law on this, generally you're supposed to have folks being physically present, but that was all done, pre-pandemic. We didn't really contemplate that, but the Attorney General's office has opined for telephonic participation, things of that nature. It's really only supposed to be used for extraordinary circumstances and not necessarily as a convenience, but then they say the commission determines ultimately what extraordinary circumstances mean. So if the commission finds that the circumstances with results of the pandemic at this stage warrant that the commissioner who does not feel comfortable can Zoom in, then that's fine.
Okay. I'm okay with that. Is everyone else okay with that?
Yes, I'm okay that if I feel like coming, I can come. I'm not restricted. If I feel ill, I will request that I be on Zoom if I'm ill and cannot attend. Other than that, I would like to be at every meeting.
Okay.
Staff will continue to provide the 3 who will attend in person, and the 2 via Zoom can make their own determination going forward. And is there a certain time that the commission would like me to readdress this, maybe in 1 month's time, just on a regular basis, see how we're progressing?
Commissioner Preston, what's your thoughts?
Whatever my colleagues feel that it is a good time to readdress this, I would say at least another couple months of this.
No.
And I think that, can I finish, please?
I'm sorry, go ahead. I apologize. I didn't realize I wasn't muted.
I'll tell you what, you guys just whatever you think, Mayor, whatever is good, whatever is the mood of the day is. It's fine.
If you're comfortable with 2 months, I think 2 months, if we can reevaluate in 2 months, see where our numbers are at. Is that okay with everyone?
No. I would like to attend all meetings. I'll take the risk.
Okay, you can come in, then that's fine. That's your choice. You'll be allowed to do that. But we'll reevaluate in 2 months if we're gonna not have that option. So everyone else okay with that?
Mayor.
Yes.
If it's all right with the dais, I think, I don't know if it was you was saying, maybe it was the city manager said to come back in a month or so. Let's take a look at it in a month if everybody's comfortable with that. Look at it in a month and we can decide from there if my colleagues are comfortable with that. Is that okay?
Okay, that's fine. We'll give the correction there.
Thank you.
Did you want to say something, Commissioner Cross?
I want to understand what we're agreeing to. So the 3 that would normally be here in person continue to be in person. The 2 that would be by Zoom, it's discretionary. They'd be in person, not mandatory.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then we evaluate in a month where we are.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. So give you that correction. Perfect. Okay.
Next item, we're on city commission business, item number 10. Item number 10 is an ordinance of the city commission, the city of Deerfield Beach, Florida, amending chapter 2, administration of the city code of ordinances, article 6, code enforcement, division 2, special magistrate, section 2-361, administrative fines, costs of repair, liens, to increase the maximum amount of administrative fines that may be imposed by the special magistrate for city code violations, providing for conflicts, severability, codification, and an effective date. This is first reading, and this ordinance requires a 4/5 vote of the city commission for adoption. The ordinance is sponsored by now Vice Mayor Hudak. And so currently under the state law and our city code, we generally follow state law when it comes to the fine amounts that the special magistrate can levy pursuant to code enforcement hearings. Under state law, and that's currently the city code provides maximum fines in the amount of $250 per day for the first violation and $500 per day for a repeat violation. So for example, if something is really egregious, the special magistrate right now is capped at issuing a fine of $250 per day if it's the first violation. Okay. Under the state law, specifically section 162.09 Florida statutes, municipalities that have populations greater than 50,000, such as the city of Deerfield Beach, have the option to increase those maximum fine amounts upon a 4/5 vote of adoption of an ordinance to do so. So this ordinance is that ordinance, and it provides for the maximum fines permitted under statute for populations over $50,000. It doesn't mean that when somebody receives a violation, they're going to get that fine. It just gives the magistrate the authority to go up to that amount. And per state law, the magistrate is required when issuing the fine amount to consider, 1, the gravity of the violation, 2, the actions taken by the violator to correct the violation, and 3, any previous violations committed by the violator. So notwithstanding whatever the maximum amount is, they still have to take those items into consideration when making those fines. So turn it over to the sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much, City Attorney. I appreciate the summary. Again, this does not mandate what the magistrate is going to do or what he or she can impose. What this does is this just gives them another tool in order to get individuals in compliance. And this was really brought about more by the Airbnb situation that we have in our city. These Airbnbs are popping up all over the place. We've got individuals purchasing numerous condo units and turning them into essentially hotels, turning them into Airbnb suites. And it is adversely affecting our neighborhoods. Right now, the magistrate can only go up to a certain level. This just gives them the opportunity to increase those fines up to the $500 a day. The city does not have, as all of you know, a lot of authority over Airbnbs. This is probably the only tool that we have to send a message to them that Deerfield Beach is not the Wild West and is not a place for these Airbnbs to be popping up all over, especially in our neighborhoods. So what I'm just proposing is that we give the magistrate as much ammunition as we can to at least get the owners of these Airbnbs to be good neighbors. This is not an attack on the individual who has a boat in his yard, or the individual who put artificial turf in the front of the yard. This is more for the continual violators, the individuals who thumb their nose at authority and do whatever they want because they feel that I don't live here, this is just an investment property for me, and these really aren't my neighbors, I live in California. This just happens to be an investment property that's in Deerfield Beach. Right now, what happens is that there is a noise ordinance. Police go out, they give a ticket to the person who's doing the noise ordinance. The owner of the house doesn't even know that there was a violation. At least this puts the violation where it needs to be, which is to the owners of these Airbnbs, to try to get them to be more responsible with the individuals that they are renting their homes to, because this is adversely affecting our neighborhoods. And this is a challenge that we're going to see a lot more in the future. That's why I propose this. Thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to point out that this ordinance is not specific to any particular property, any types of property or types of violations. It applies it would apply, if adopted, the increased fines would apply citywide and would potentially be available for the magistrate to levy for any code violation under our code. So I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
And I'll give you some other, not specific examples, but I mean, we did have one tonight that was brought up that is a repeat violator. Can you imagine having the ability to only fine $250 and maybe $500 for a owner that did not repair their elevators and left people trapped on the third, fourth floor that were handicapped and had no ability to get down? It's a slap on the wrist when you look at some of the egregiousness of some of these offenses. And this is not meant as an ability for us to use this as our go-to dollar amount. This is for those situations where the violations are not equal, but yet are treated equally when it comes to what the maximum is. When you have really egregious situations, we need to have the ability to be more punitive. We need to have the ability to get the attention of the violator. As the city attorney pointed out, it still has to follow the guidelines, the rules that is based on what has been handed down previously, what the actual efforts have been by the owners to rectify it, and any past behavior. So this is not a matter of this just, okay, we're going to start charging a lot more money for simple violations. This is giving us a larger arsenal that we can really drop the hammer down much harder than we've been able to in the past on the most egregious violators of some of our codes that we have, some of them that have been discussed here in the chamber, not only tonight, but at other times. So I would love to be able to have the ability to come down harder on those who are the worst offenders. Commissioner Parnas?
Yeah, I agree with this wholeheartedly for the following reason. I go to the hearings every once in a while, especially when I read that there's 30 or 40 in my district that are going in front of the magistrate. And I find the magistrate to be extremely lenient in the respect where somebody says, I'm out of work, I can't fix that for 60 days. And he'll give them the opportunity to extend for another 60 days to get it fixed. This is for the guy who asks for the extension 3 times, does nothing, and ignores it. And it gives the magistrate the tool to say, we bent over backwards to help you, and all you're doing is spitting on us. And it's time we took action. And I agree, there's also a matter of safety. There are some violations where buildings, how can I put it, ignore safety regulations. They have barbecue pits, like in the village next to an apartment house, less than 20 feet from the building. And they get a ticket and they ignore it. And a tank that can explode is stored under the stairwell where they got the ticket for doing that. And they keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And they finally show up and pay a very small fine. And next week they're doing it all over again. This does give the magistrate the tool for repeat offenders that endanger the lives of other people, especially in multi-dwellings, and endanger their lives with no remorse at all. And I think it's time to say, okay, you want to play, you got to pay. We've given you every opportunity to come into compliance. You thumb your nose at us. Then, okay, pay the price. You know, it's the old expression, can't do the time, don't do the crime. So I think this is an important thing, a tool to give the city to bring people into compliance with the law. And why is it there? Safety of the residents of the building. And I'm keen on having buildings safe.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Commissioner Preston?
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's important for anyone who is listening or anyone that might be in the chambers that they really understand what this is all about. There was a word that was used earlier, and that word was egregious. And so that along with what's already been said, not to be redundant, but there has to come a time where those that are egregious in violations, there is some leverage for the magistrate to be able to deal with that. And so with that, you know, I think it's important that we move ahead with that in mind. Those people that just simply are not paying attention, or just simply have chosen that, you know, I'm not going to abide by whatever rules there are in place. But make no mistake about it, this is not targeting any one group as much as it is bringing actually a balance to anyone who may be in violation. So that's important to understand. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Drosky.
Thank you, Mayor. I am in favor of this as well, but I do have a concern. This is intended towards the Airbnbs, but it's not written that way. I mean, this applies across the board to any code violation that we have. So you don't cut your grass, you could be socked with $1,000 a day, potentially, and that would, I think, be kind of an extreme circumstance. I know we're trying to target a specific area, but this could be applied to any situation that comes before the magistrate. And I have a concern with that, because that would hurt the resident, you know, who is trying to comply potentially, as opposed to these Airbnbs that have no intention of complying. I do have a solution though, because in section 2B, it lists some of the factors that the magistrate shall consider when instituting these fines. And perhaps city attorney, before second reading, we can add to this list here that the magistrate should consider, because we have number one, the gravity of the violation, which goes into the seriousness of it. I'm okay with that. Number two, the actions taken by the violator to correct the violation, which in the Airbnb situation will probably be none. And then three, any previous violations committed by the violator. So I think one, we need to be, you know, who is the violator? You know, is the violator the tenant? Because the tenant will never comply, or the person renting will never comply. If the violator is a property owner, then perhaps we need to tweak the procedure and make that, find out who is, kind of tailor more who we're targeting. The violator is the person renting the Airbnb, then this isn't worth the paper that it's written on. But if you're going after the property owner, then we're getting somewhere. And then, and also in section B, why don't we put in a criteria, whether the violator is the property owner? And I think that's kind of honing in and getting where this is intended to go is, is the property, if the violator is the property owner, then I think that gives the magistrate more leeway to go to the maximum fine than not. And I think that might alleviate some of my concerns if we beef up section B and the criteria that the magistrate considers, so that this doesn't, inadvertently get applied to kind of a run-of-the-mill code situation, which in a vacuum, this could.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Before I let the city attorney comment, I'm going to say this, I wholeheartedly disagree with that. And I'm going to use the analogy. The intent is, and we know the magistrate's ruling, well, yes, they have the ability, they can do the maximum anytime. There's sometimes it's $25 a day, which is what the magistrate might do, and the maximum is capped where it's at. But I don't think we have a lot of situations in which a simple, you haven't mowed your grass, is given the maximum $250 fine. That just doesn't occur. That's the frequency of that happening is no different if the cap's where it's at now to where it's going to be in the future. If it's raised, that's not what they go to. But I'll give you an example. So let's say it's a fence, someone hasn't maintained their fence. That means it's, you have a couple loose boards, it's still, you still don't have access to the backyard, but it might be in somewhat disrepair and it gets a code violation. That is very different than having a fence in which the gate is no longer attached and you have a pool in the backyard. These are types of cases we've seen when you and I used to serve in the old code enforcement board many years ago. It's too many years than what we're actually of age to be thinking that was that long ago. But the maximum was never, it should be held for you have circumstances like that. Somebody who doesn't mow their lawn for 2 weeks or 30 days, whatever it might be a $25 a day fine. But someone who does that, who has a tremendous safety issue, we should have the ability to drop $500 on top of their head. I think that gets their attention than somebody who's an out-of-state landlord or somebody who's abandoned that property and just letting it fall apart, who's $25 a day doesn't really bother. I don't think that was the intent of this. It's not targeting, as the city attorney said, any in particular specific type of violation. This isn't meant really to target Airbnbs or anything else. This is across the board, reserved for our most egregious offenders, and it will be used with the same common sense approach that the magistrate is currently using, which is you don't pound someone on the head with the maximum for a minor violation. And given the strict guideline or the guidelines that have been given, I don't think that's what the magistrate is doing currently. And I don't think raising that amount is going to change that. You know what I mean?
I do, but doesn't the first factor, the gravity of the violation, cover what you're talking about in the fence situation? That
yes, it does.
Boards
it absolutely
versus
does. That's the
gate?
difference between a $25 fine and a $250 fine. Rather than $250, I'd rather be $500. Fix that damn fence. $250, $500 a day. You got somebody's attention. And somebody who abandons their property like that loses public health safety. I absolutely think the hammer should come down there a lot harder than a $250 a day fine, in my opinion.
But doesn't my amendment give the magistrate more power to levy that bigger fine? That's what I'm trying to accomplish here, not weaken it, but strengthen it. So I don't understand the objection.
I didn't take it down. Commissioner Preston and Commissioner Parnas.
My colleague asked to make it clear who we're targeting. I think it's very clear who we're targeting, and that is the egregious offender. And that's who we're targeting. And I think that that's very clear. And I think that that we're okay with that.
Commissioner Parnas.
Yeah, and stop me if I'm wrong, city attorney, but aren't most citations issued to the property owner rather than the tenant? If I have a problem in my building that I own, the elevator's not working, it's not the tenant that gets the ticket, it's the owner of the property.
Yeah, so property related violations, the city can cite the property owner for violation of tenants, and the city could also cite tenants. And generally, the city would want to cite the property owner because there's more, enforceability there, particularly in a situation where somebody may be, leasing or short-term leasing, they're gone, right? And they may go somewhere. But the property owner, you're going to get their attention because ultimately, if they don't comply and they continue with that conduct, the city gets a lien on their property. And generally, most property owners would want to avoid that.
That's the point I'm making, that I would say probably more than 90% of the citations issued. I deal with code I have a section of apartment houses, the condos, where constantly the owners of the property get written, not the individual, but the owners of the property for violations, whether it be dumping, etc. Whoever owns the property gets the citation. Even though that they have dumpsters all over the village, for instance, wherever property it sits on, the owner gets the violation if they dump on Sunday instead of Tuesday for Wednesday pickup. So I think this targets the owners of the property to maintain their property in a legal manner. And the violent offenders, the egregious ones, will get the most, probably the highest fines if they are continually in front of the magistrate or ignoring it, not showing up. That the magistrate will finally say, fine, this is an egregious situation, 500 a day. I've been to these hearings where owners show up and say, I need 60 days or 3 months to correct the violation, and the magistrate gives it to them. And then when they don't show up at the next hearing, and they get a nice fine, they ask for it. They asked for the time, they were given the time, and they ignored them. This is an egregious offender, and he should be dealt with as such. I approve of this 100%. And it's not targeting any one group. It's targeting the owners of property that don't obey the law.
Thank you, Commissioner. We go to Commissioner Hudak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And again, I want to point out, this isn't targeting anybody.
Right.
This is giving the magistrate an additional tool in their guidebook in order to determine, again, these code violation hearings are meant to be a deterrent, is meant to get individuals in line with code. And this is just another tool we're giving the magistrate, who is a professional, who's going to follow the same path that he's followed or she's followed previously. It's just giving them another tool in their toolbox in order to get these properties into compliance, whether it's an Airbnb, whether it's somebody who doesn't cut their grass. It's an additional tool. The city doesn't tell the magistrate what to do. All we can do is set the limits on what they can do as far as the fines are concerned. And that's why this is brought forth. It was brought forth again because of the code violations with the Airbnb industry, but it is not targeting them. It is not targeting any industry, any individual. This is just, except for the egregious offender. I like the way Commissioner Preston mentioned that. Gives the magistrate an opportunity to go to a higher fine to hopefully get their attention, to get their properties back into compliance. That's all this is for. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Yeah, before we go there, we have, thanks for the motion in a second. Can we open this up to the public? Tired of everything else. And close it to the public then.
I'll make my motion.
We already have.
I'll second it again.
We have a motion and a second. Motion by Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Parnas. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay.
Okay, item number 11 is discussion and potential action regarding city charter term limit restrictions for consecutive service as commissioner and then as mayor. So I'm going to take this one. You recall at our last commission meeting in discussing the potential ballot question for adding an additional term for the term limits, that the issue was raised about a potential loophole with respect to an individual who would serve as a commissioner consecutively for 8 years, immediately followed by the mayor consecutively 8 years. And the concern that was raised was a potential loophole about that same individual being able to then immediately run for commissioner. And, you know, I was directed to look into it, potentially create a ballot question with respect to closing that potential loophole. So since that meeting, you know, I had the opportunity to speak with the mayor a little bit more about his concern. I had the opportunity to review the charter provision again and really take a hard look at it. And what I'm here to tell you today is it's my opinion that somebody in that circumstance currently with our existing charter language would not be able to immediately run for commissioner right after 8 years of consecutive service as commissioner and 8 years as consecutive service as mayor. And I'll try to keep the basis for my opinion relatively simple, but I asked the clerk's office to put the specific charter provision before you so you can see what I'm seeing and understand the basis for my opinion. So you see there in the first sentence that I bolded, and that emphasis is mine. It says no person may appear on the ballot for re-election to the Deerfield Beach City Commission. And I want to stop there because it says as defined in section 3.01. So when you go to charter section 3.01, it becomes clear that when they speak to the Deerfield Beach City Commission and a member of the city commission later on, they're referring to both a commissioner and a mayor. So no person may appear on the ballot for re-election to Deerfield Beach City Commission. I'm going to put in there either as mayor or commissioner if by the end of their current term of office, the person would have served as a member of the Deerfield Beach City Commission for 8 consecutive years. So I'm going to stop there because, again, member of the city commission could also potentially be the mayor. So if they just serve for mayor for 8 years, right, they would then, at the end of their current term of office, have served as a member of the city commission for 8 consecutive years. So you'll see after 8 consecutive years, there's a, provided that. And really that section is really to carve out what we do currently have in the city, which is that's where it allows for a commissioner who serves for 8 consecutive years to then not be prohibited from then immediately thereafter serving as mayor for 2 terms, like our current mayor does. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention since you gave me that prior direction. Still, if you see if the commission still feels that way after hearing my opinion, because, I do have a little bit of a concern about putting a ballot question on to potentially even clarify it further. And somebody could always argue the language could be a little clearer, and that's fair, because if the electors vote no, for example, which would suggest that they don't care about a restriction going there, my opinion is still going to be the same because the language hasn't changed. So I just wanted to point that out to you, get your thoughts on it, and see if this is something you still want to pursue or not. Thank you.
I thank you for the clarification on it, because I think that's something that historically everybody has said it is allowed to do. And I think the language is a little vague in some areas. I think you get to the specifics where it does address it. I don't know if the language is tight to not be challenged by anybody in the future, but whatever it is, if that's what your opinion is, you don't think it's something that anybody can challenge, because I don't think it should be. I don't think it should be allowed. I think that loophole should be closed. I don't think I should have the ability when I'm done with this term to turn around and run for district board commissioner or wherever else. I think that's right. So whether I move with 1 or 2 or 3, I shouldn't be allowed to run for those commission seats either. It doesn't matter. It needs to be at the end here. So, and it sounds like that loophole doesn't necessarily exist, even though I think historically that's what everyone has said. So I think this gives some clarity, and it doesn't seem to be a necessity to have this go on for referendum. So I don't think we need to do it.
Okay. Thank you. And I would also, like to point out, because of the significance of this, first of all, I can't tell you that nobody could ever challenge it, right? Theoretically, if somebody got in that position and then got prevented, somebody can always file a lawsuit if they can pay the filing fee. But it's my opinion that I think this is the proper reading, what I just gave you. And because of the significance of this, I did confer with a couple of my colleagues and let them make their own independent judgment within my firm, who are also city attorneys, who came to the same conclusion. Just wanted to point that out. So, Mayor, there was a motion made at the last meeting. So if we could just to direct me to prepare the question. So if that's the way the commission wants to head, if I could just get a motion to eliminate that.
Okay, I have Vice Mayor Hudak and then Commissioner Parnas.
So just a quick question on that. Does that mean that individual is banned forever? Or what if, 2 years from now, Bill moves to District 1 and pulls a Tom Brady and decides, you know what, I missed the action, I want to run again. He still would have that ability. Is that correct, as it's currently written?
Mr. Vice Mayor, you are correct. It does not prohibit somebody from taking a break and then coming back. It speaks to consecutive service in our charter.
Commissioner Parnas.
Yeah, I have a question. The break could be 2 weeks. in the fact that, let's take my position. Okay, I've done my 2 terms. I can't run because consecutive for a 3rd term, and a senior citizen older than me becomes the 3rd District 3 commissioner and has a heart attack 2 months over. Now I've had a break. I could then run for commissioner again since there was a break of 2 months. It's not consecutive. I didn't run for a 3rd term. But the way I read this, I could then run for a 3rd term, even though I've only been out of office 2 months.
Right, so I don't know if that I would characterize that as your 3rd term, although I could certainly understand somebody making the argument. I guess presumably if another person came in, ran for office, went through everything to do that and won, and then let's say because of death or resignation at some time in the future, that would trigger probably in a special election at some point under our charter. And while I haven't specifically analyzed this issue, my initial thoughts are because the wording reads that by the end of their current term of office would suggest that individual would need to be in office to be prevented from going to that next election. So I guess that is a possibility, but I haven't really, analyzed that issue in depth.
Resignation, death, or removal, which.
Or removal.
Since I've
Yeah.
considered- I've had 3 colleagues, or seen 3 people removed from office. So,
Good point.
that would happen, but you might want to put away your voodoo doll there, which your partners. But if it's the board, if the board's okay with this, and Vice Mayor, I know you want to weigh in too, but I would like to see this rescinded. Correct. Vice Mayor?
No,
Okay. Do we need a motion for that?
I think you made a motion previously, so I would just suggest motion to rescind the direction to the city attorney to prepare that additional ballot question.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
And before we do, Mayor, I don't know if you want to open it up to the public since we are
Yes.
taking action. Thank you.
Anyone from the public here to comment on the side? Yes. Pardon? Sure.
Jack Sullivan, 109 South Street. Mr. Fernandez's suggestions and rationale for extending the term of the elected officials basis and without merit. Mr. Fernandez argued that police property owners in their community are incapable of filling the shoes of outlying officials, let alone capable of doing.
I'm going to pause you for one moment. Is this letter pertaining to this particular item? That seems to be the argument, seems to be more about.
It doesn't sound like it sounds like more of a general public comment about the previous agenda item that was on the prior meeting.
Should it be read at this meeting or should it wait till the next one?
Well, we could have done, you could reopen the regular public comment or you could theoretically read it at the next meeting, I guess. I don't know I forgot what the specific request was from the individual as to when to read it or what item it should be attached to.
It was for this meeting. Well, if they were standing here in person, I would tell them that they need to stick to the subject matter that's being discussed and not something another day. So, but since, I'll come back and open that public portion. That way to be fair, since it was already closed, I probably should have read at that point instead of this. Clearly, the person who sent that in doesn't understand that. So we'll fix that. That's all right. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Anyone else from the public here to comment or to close it? I'm going to close it to the public then. Commission.
Motion to rescind.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second to rescind. An affirmative vote would stop the city attorney from moving forward. A vote in the negative would allow him to continue to move forward. So all in favor, say yes.
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 Those again, opposed? Okay. I'm going to open up the public section just to make sure that this comment is right on the record. So this is for public comment. I'm opening up for the specific letter. Clerk, would you like me to read it? This was an email directed initially to Commissioner Hudak. Mr. Parnas' suggestions, this is Chad Chaladen. Mr. Parnas' suggestions and rationale for extending the term limits of elected officials are baseless and without merit. Mr. Parnas has argued that he believes property owners in Deerfield Beach are incapable of filling the shoes of outgoing officials, let alone capable of doing a better job than outgoing officials. This is from a person who admitted, the guy who admittedly plays with his fishing pole while he lays on the couch watching the DFB underwater cam at home. This is from a guy that characterizes his former hot dog and hamburger stand or recreational ball field as a restaurant. This is from a guy who he has denied making public statements that were being recorded on the dais. The citizens have had enough of Bernie Parnas and numerous other elected officials. Your time is up. It's been addressed in previous election by the voters. Has Bernie Parnas received a petition with the same number of signatures that a recall vote would require? He'll get the signatures, and holding special election to change the charter may be warranted. Until then, please do not waste $35,000 plus because Bernie Parnas thinks the voting public is too stupid to take out from those who have turned down. No special election without the same number of signatures required for a recall ballot. The commission needs further input. Send out surveys online. Commissioner Hudak, we've done this break, repair, replacement, closure discussion code, not Department 2, get fundings and email addresses. Have the marketing public relations department send out an email blast and see what kind of reaction we receive and support Parnas's proposed change. Anyone else from the public? I'm going to close it back into the public. Commissioner Parnas, I hope those comments were not too personal. I would have held some of them back, but I think you're tough enough to take it.
Well, I would simply say the following. My intention is, when it comes to anything to do with the charter, okay, whether they change it or not is something I believe in. Let the voters decide. And the people that I have spoken to thought that was a good idea, to let the voters decide and speak. And I think on some items, that's very important. Whether it be a city matter or an amendment to the state or the county, they go on the ballot and
Right.
the public decides. And that's
Sure,
my
I
opinion.
don't want to debate this particular issue right now because it's.
I'm not debating it. I'm just telling the gentleman, I'm sorry he feels that way, but he's entitled to his opinion. And I'm entitled to mine.
Absolutely.
Mine is that the voters should decide. His is that we're wasting time. Okay. Thank you for your comment.
There you go. I'm going to let you go ahead and get started since it's comments by the mayor and the city commission. Do you want to go ahead and continue, Commissioner Parnas?
Absolutely. I'm very happy to say that my district has never looked better. Since code has been very active, especially along Military Trail, you can drive down Military Trail on a weekend and not see couches, tables, garbage. It looks nice. And that I thank code enforcement for getting after the owners of apartments to say your tenants can no longer do that because it's going to cost you money. And so they've cleaned it up. The same as in the village. Code enforcement tells me that illegal dumping has been reduced more than 50% with their 16,000 residents in season in the village. So I'm very pleased working with them. And we've produced 1,000 eyes looking out after their own neighborhoods and keeping code busy when there's illegal dumping or illegal activity. And so I'm very pleased with what code has been doing, working with building owners, presidents of buildings, etc., and cleaning up the city. I think it enhances our city instead of having it look like a junk pile. And it's better. It's a better atmosphere for everybody, from the children to senior citizens. That's all I have for this meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner. Going, District 3, can we go to District 4?
Thank you, Mayor. I only have 2 items this evening. First is my next Saturday office hours will be April 2nd. I did notice that that is also the day of the city's appreciation day. So if I could have asked the city manager just to please limit that from 10 to 11. Usually it's 10 to noon, 10 to 11, and that way I can go visit with our employees, because I think it's very important for the great job that they do to get out there and talk to them as well. So I kind of split the baby that morning. And the second one is I'm going to be asking for a resolution be put on our next agenda that the city divest any investments that we have that pertain to assets that may be in the country of Russia. What Russia is doing to Ukraine, in my opinion, is a complete travesty, and not only a war against the Ukrainian people, but a war against democracy itself. I know we don't get into many national or political issues up here, and we try to steer away from it, but I think this is something very important, and that Deerfield Beach should take a stand on it. And I'm going to sponsor it, and I would like to see all my colleagues sponsor it as well. I'd like to see all 5 of us on that. I think it's that important. In the grand scheme of things, it will not make probably much of an economic dent, but it'll at least show that we are on the right side of this particular cause. And it's just, a human travesty that is occurring directly across the ocean from us. And I don't think we should sit idly by and just watch. I think we need to take action, and this is some action that we can actually take moving forward. And so I'm going to ask that be put on the next agenda, and hopefully that will be unanimous. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. District 2.
Thank you, Mayor. First to my colleague, Commissioner Drosky, well said. Well said. Well said. Count me in right now. The devastation is incredible. And what we see is just so tough, just to deal with. And you're right, this has more to do with just a country. It's an attack on democracy as well. And so, Commissioner, count me in again. At this time, I mean to be redundant. There will be a District 2 meeting on March 31st at the Hillsborough Technology Center at 7 p.m. And Kiwanis West is doing a cleanup. That cleanup is from Deerfield Park Elementary down to Northwest 2nd Street. It's very short. I've talked to the city manager. They need gloves and protection, that sort of thing. And any of the kids that want service hours, that's the last day of spring break. So that's on a Monday. So that's it. That's it for me, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I said my comments earlier in my speech, and I really mean it. I am honored to hold this post as Vice Mayor, and looking forward to representing not only the citizens of District 1, but also the city as a whole. Looking forward to the Employee Appreciation Day on April 2nd. And you have my full support as well, Commissioner Drosky, with regards to the divestment. What's happening over in Ukraine is extremely sad. And I feel for those individuals who for 31 years lived in their own country and then having to see it being devastated the way it is. I just hope we all can do more. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and welcome to that seat. And Commissioner Parnas, I do want to say that I have seen the difference in your district, and I've seen it not just visually, but I've also heard it with less complaints that we've had in the past. So I want to thank you for your efforts on that. It has been a game changer over there. So thank you. There's been a report of a burrowing owl nest right to the east of Oviedo McKeithen Park. If we could have staff kind of look at that, it might need to be roped off because those are protected I can get you a little bit more specifics, but I think it's pretty obvious if something goes on the east side of the building, and you should be able to see it's right next to the gym. Okay. The vice mayor mentioned Kiwanis West, and you can think about all the groups we have in the city: Historical Society, Kiwanis, Rotary, Women's Club. They give so much back to the city. You want to see where all the volunteers are, the ones that we have a hard time finding for some of the things that we have to do here, like being on boards and those types of things. They're all at these events. Friday, I was fortunate enough to go to the Historical Society's event where they had some music played by the Associates, which is a group of associate members of J&M Family who played in the band. It was really entertaining. It was nice to see everybody out there on a beautiful Friday night. But I do want to thank them, and I want all of us to remember them when it comes budget time, when we think about where we can stretch our dollars to be manpower they bring as volunteers, what they give back to the city. I hope we're considerate of that when it comes to being able to financially assist them, because it takes a burden off the city of Deerfield Beach employees. Well, in some cases it does, but what it does is we have a workforce out there, volunteers, to put on some of these events that happen. It adds to the city, and it does take a burden off our parks and rec events that they would be posting as opposed to us. So it's just something to keep in mind looking forward. I want to thank them. Again, speeding on Hillsborough. This is a problem. I know it's not just us, it's everywhere, but and I know that we have signs and things out, but I would like some more enforcement out there with speed traps to be able to prevent people from going in. There's certain areas, there used to be Hacienda Village down here in South Florida, that everybody knew that if you went a half mile over a speed limit, they dropped you from 55 down to about 25. They would make a fortune. Of course, that was all, I think, money going in the pockets that people shouldn't have. But at least they were known for being a speed trap. I wouldn't mind Deerfield Beach for being known for being a speed trap. Put the enforcement at a level that's almost unbearable for them. I don't know if that's something we can do, but I am very close, living next to Hillsborough Boulevard. Sounds that I hear are not from slow moving cars. They're from vehicles that buzz by like a mosquito. And it's and I've seen it, and it's a danger. And I hope we just continue with the enforcement that we're doing. I believe that is all I have for now. Oh, one last thing. I will be out of town from Thursday till the following weekend. And I don't believe I'm going to have cell service. So this, in case anyone's trying to get a hold of me, I will be very difficult to get a hold of. I will try to, if I get any communications, I'll be communicating with the city manager like I normally do. So, but I will be out of pocket just to let everybody know. That's all I have. We have a motion to adjourn from the vice mayor. Second by Commissioner Borowski. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.